Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's Tuesday, May 28th, and this is the Board of Commissioners work session. And up first for our public part of the meeting we'll be sitting as the Board of Social Services, where we'll receive our first quarter update with the whole gang's here. Is Lindsay online, or she is? She's online. Lindsay's online. Now, do we need to go into, do we need a motion to go in as a Board of Social Service, or do I just, we do? So I need a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Francie moved, Kelly seconded to go in as the Board of Social Services. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're in. Take it away.
Perfect. Let me know if I turn my mic on.
Lindsay is on.
Hang on, Stuart.
Lindsay's
Stuart,
here. There
can
she
you
is.
hear me?
Are you going to do the
Can
intro,
everybody hear
Lindsay?
me?
Hi,
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. Can everybody? Yeah. Hi. Good morning, everybody. Yep, Stuart, I'll do the introduction and then have you do all the finances. Good morning, everyone, or I guess it's afternoon now. Lindsay Maish, Director of Human Services. And thank you for sitting in as our Board of Social Services today. Just to do kind of a high level overview to remind you why we're here today and what we're going to be presenting is that we are, as you know, Colorado is a state supervised, county administered human services system. Our Department of Human Services is responsible for all of the activities provided by local and district human services departments and all of our allocations and expenditures that are related to that. The state relies on you all, the Board of County Commissioners, to serve as our Board of Social Services to oversee these activities and address economic assistance and welfare duties, responsibilities, and activities of the County Human Services Department. This is our statutorily, we are required to present to you our payrolls and expenditures for these programs and nothing else, but we bring to you updates today. We had some different quarterly updates, and this one today is specifically around legislative updates. In Pickens County, human services functions are primarily performed by all of us. However, we do have a few mandated services that we contract with other entities to provide this service. That's including our contracts with Garfield County Human Services to provide child support services and long-term care support services. And then other services that are provided through contracts or IGAs include LEAP, eligibility and determination, which is through our Goodwill contract, and child and adult protection hotline services, and that's provided to us by Prowers County. So today what you're going to be hearing about is you're going to be hearing about Q1 of 2024 calendar budget, and you'll be looking at the first quarter. And just as a reminder, and Stuart can probably explain this a little bit better than I can, but human services program allocations, we follow the state fiscal year. So what you're going to see is January to March. Because of this, the second half of the year sometimes has a spike in revenue, which is it's covering the previous state's year's expenditures. So there's a closeout or a payout process, and that's for this fiscal year, and it includes covering costs from the 6 months of the previous year. You don't have to worry about that right now because we're just going to be going over Q1. So now I will hand it over to Stuart to talk about our first quarter, January through March budget expenditure reports and payrolls.
All right, welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate that. Pretty excited to present that this is a very, in my opinion, very simple, straightforward, with no surprises, quarter for human services. One of the items I did want to bring up, and it has been something we've talked about a lot last
Lindsay,
year.
mute your, sorry, excuse me. Did you have to mute? There you go. All right.
Perfect. So I had mentioned many times last year about the TANF, the disconnect in our coding to TANF, where a lot of times our expenditures were really outpacing our revenues, and it just showed up kind of strangely, and we talked about that over and over and over, very much so kind of a broken record. Happy to present that we did get that corrected, and as you see from the chart there under TANF and Colorado Works, those percents as used are more in line with each other and are more correct with about 27 or with that 25% of the year that has gone through. And so the other things that I wanted to bring to your attention would be things, again, that I've said over and over again with child care and with child support services. These are issues that we're having child care facility staffing issues and the inability of Pickens County citizens to qualify for those programs, which are kind of affecting our revenue and our expenditure. So continue to kind of be that broken record on that. Looking at the total programs, we can see that we're right in line. 20% of our budget has been used through March in revenue, and about 25% of expenditure. So we're right there. So I thought that was a good report. Nothing that's really caught my eye. Do you guys have any questions for me on this report?
Questions?
I have a question under quarter budget review and expenditure reporting under notes. The first bullet point, it says due to increase in spending for trauma-informed coaching and consulting practices. What is that?
Yeah, that is something I think Lindsay, she could probably speak
Hi,
more
Lindsay.
eloquently than I could about that one.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Patty. Great question. So we applied for and received a grant last year from HICPA, from Healthcare Policy and Financing. That one. For an innovative approach to the work that we do. And one of the things that we had applied for was trauma-informed leadership and management. So we had been working for the last year with a consulting company called Aaliyah. We've worked with them in the past, and specifically our leadership team and some of our staff, but mostly with our leadership team around how to really do trauma-informed care. And that was intended to improve outcomes for the clients that we serve. And we're going to be having our final, we're going to have a final survey that goes out here in the next couple of weeks, probably, and a final report for that in June. And we'll be reporting out to HICPA for that coming up here in late June, I think.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any other questions on that one?
Don't see any.
I will make
Just
a,
one thing.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
yeah, I didn't know if you guys were
Do you
ready
need
for a
yet,
motion.
or do you need it? We have to go do for each one.
Yeah, let me just really quickly, let me go through. So childcare, I know that Stuart spoke to this, but we are going to probably see another impact to this as well. Our CCAP dollars, they've again changed the poverty level, and they have actually decreased it. So less families will be eligible to qualify for CCAP. Which is frustrating because it leaves a lot of money on the table for us that just sits there unspent that we can't help our community with. So I am right now sitting in a hotel room at CCI in Vail, where I plan to be advocating with other Northwest directors around those percentage rates. That's really just a rule change. It's not anything legislative, but we're going to be advocating and possibly bringing into the legislative session next year something around how county, there was a time when counties could set our own percentages up to a certain amount so that more families could access those dollars. But that one is really a shame that we see that money just sit there and we can't use it. And as a result, Kids First in City of Aspen kind of picks up the gap between those. So just wanted to let you know that we're not anticipating seeing a change in that anytime soon. And I'm planning on advocating for that in these areas, like CCI and different legislative ways.
So that's an issue we should put on our,
Kelly?
Are we seeing any increase in applications as families are coming off the universal pre-K funding for the summer? Can they qualify for just a few months at a time?
So something that we are doing, and I can let Norma speak to this a little bit more, but we're starting to get a little bit more creative, Kelly, with our TANF dollars. So we're contracting right now with 2 different programs for summer camp to help support low-income families who are eligible to essentially waive their fees for summer camp. So that's one of the ways through the summer that we're going to be able to support some of these families. Unfortunately, it's not using our CCAP dollars, though. It's using our TANF dollars.
Right, I just wonder, because everyone in preschool right now who got the 10 hours a week of universal pre-K funding, that ended in May, or ends this month. So for the next 3 months, until they restart the school year in September, their bills go back up for that quarter.
Yeah, and if they're eligible, then we are helping to waive some of those fees at some of those summer camps. But there's nothing in place right now to address that issue that you just spoke to, which is the summer issue for
Right.
low-income families.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
And can I,
Go ahead, Patty.
and weren't we trying to go the opposite direction as far as poverty levels and cost of living reflected? And so we're going the wrong way, obviously. So I think that's interesting when we've been pushing it for years that it doesn't make sense. And people, especially when you live in areas of high cost of living, that should be one of the factors taken into consideration. So Kelly's trying to help us put together a list for CCI, et cetera, for next year for legislative issues. So keep us in the loop and we'll see what we can do to help with that and bring it to people's attention. And because I'm sure there's a lot of other counties out there that are in that same boat.
Yeah, most of us resort areas are feeling that a lot. So I'll keep you posted after CCI, especially if there's the possibility of a bill being born into next legislative season.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along.
So now are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, we're ready.
We need to have a motion to approve the 2024 first quarter expenditures. I will make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, thank you. All right.
Now to payrolls, right?
Okay.
Off to payroll.
Norma, are you doing that or is Lindsay?
Lindsay.
Oh, okay. I thought, Norma, you were going to do it.
Oh.
I can
Okay.
go through this. Norma, do you want to do it or would you like me to do it?
I can just do it right here. For the A&D disabled, the insurance for the A&D programs was slightly higher in the quarter first on 2024. Due to the highest than average caseloads, there was only 2 cases. However, there was currently no active cases for A&D. The primary reason for the low enrollment in the program is due to the low income and resources threshold for the eligibility. And that's because when a person qualifies for A&D programs, they cannot make more than $248 a month.
What?
And and the limits for the resources, for a single person cannot have more than $2,000 in their account, or for a couple, no more than $3,000.
Oh, my.
So for our Colorado Child Care Assistance Program, the CCAP insurance has remained steady similar for the past 3 years. The variance seen in 2023 was a result for the delayed reimbursement that appears on the ledger after the first quarter report to the boss. The total insurance for the first quarter 2023 was $45,417. Enrollment in the CCAP program continues to be low post-COVID, primarily due to the income limits barriers. And so we're steady right now for CCAP. For old age pension enrollment, the insurance for the OAP programs has remained steady for the past 3 years. And that And that is only for people that qualifies for the old age pension. Is for 60 years and older, and the standard amount is $948 per month. So we just haven't have right now OAP new cases.
I'm sorry, that's their maximum income, like even?
Yes, and it's actually as well for the resource limit is for a single person is $2,000, and for a couple is $3,000. And yes, it's 948.
We actually have people who live here and qualify for that?
Most of the times, we can get homeless people. They will apply for that. We encourage them to do it. Yes. Yes. For the LEAP program, that is the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, that one has been steady for the past 3 years as well. So right now, we're just getting into the habit to do the, the LEAP presentations, the gathering for more people can sign in on November 2024. For Colorado Works insurance and enrollment, for the basic cash assistance programs at Colorado Works is significantly higher in the first quarter of 2024 than the previous year. There are currently 4 open cases for BCA cases comparing to the average of 0 in 2023 or 1 in 2022. And it appears that increased training on staff capacity has contributed to the increase of the program's enrollment. So the increase is due because right now I've been telling my technicians to get more training, and for we can shadow more our clients whenever they come into the office and find out what programs will fit for them. So that's the training on it. The supplemental nutritional SNAP insurance for the SNAP program is 2024 is significantly lower than the previous 2 years. However, current insurance are higher than expected following the discontinuation of the emergency COVID SNAP benefits. This is due to an increase in the SNAP caseload in 2024, as well as the average increase the number of people included in each case. One is the concern trend is that the average benefits amount per person will be decreasing from $294 to $191 per month. The only thing for this summer, and this is the great news, is that there will be a supplemental of $120 per child for the whole summer. So if there's a case and there's children involved, so they will receive a supplemental $120 for the summer. So, yes, that's what I have so far.
Okay, that's
Any
it.
questions?
Is that covered through the state, or is that a federal pass-through for this summer?
It's from the state. I will get that.
I guess I'm just wondering, is it supposed to close the gap from like reduced and free lunch and the free lunch program that passed for over the summer expenses?
Yes, they're doing it right now, just for this 3 months, and I believe it's because of what for the summer.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? I don't see any hands up.
That's great, Norma. Thank you.
Do you want to make a motion on this?
I'll move to approve the 2024 first quarter payrolls.
I'll
Kelly
second.
move, Patty seconds, all in favor.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right.
All right, so today in our first quarter review, we were going to do legislative updates for you all. So we tried to pull these together as best as we could. We have this separated out into three separate categories here. I'm going to review a couple of our previously passed bills just because of the local impacts that we're going to be seeing right now. And then we're going to talk about in this past legislative season, what has passed and how we can expect to see that locally as well. And then the third category is any postponed bills. There was one big one that we're gonna speak to because we're hoping to see that one come up next session. So let's see. All right, so I'm gonna just go right in. To do that, I just want to, as a reminder, we have, so what we didn't include in this was HCPF's, the healthcare policy and financings, legislative updates, but we did have an attachment there. They're important. I think they are speaking a little bit to some of the questions, Patty, that you were asking about how we're trying to close the gap, and what you can kind of see happen in legislative session is like, we're trying to close the gap in certain ways, and then there are different federal things that are happening that are not allowing that to happen. So I think the HCPF documents do give a nice overview of what some of those things are and what to look out for. So we have those attached. So you can go take a look at those. But mostly they're surrounding kind of the impacts of the public health emergency ending and how we are managing that in in the local administration. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about today was the child welfare funding model. So this legislation was actually set into motion in 2018-19, and it is just now finally gone through the final steps of the Joint Budget Committee, and has gotten approval. And what this is essentially is they did, and it's interesting that it happened. It started in 2018-19, and they postponed it because COVID was right in the middle, where we saw some really wonky things happen with child welfare. A lot of the calls went down, a lot of our assessments went down. And then we saw that kind of ramp back up again. So the timing was interesting, but they did postpone some of the study until post-COVID. And what they found, the initial recommendations of the consultants that they worked with through this legislative passing, was that the state of Colorado, the original recommendation was that the state of Colorado needed 600 additional caseworkers. Now that was a pretty big, argument to make. And what they did was they did a second round of the study where they brought in and refined it and essentially landed on a final recommendation of 242 additional case workers coming into the system of care in the state of Colorado. What that looks like for us locally, we've been approved for 1.91 caseworkers. So do with that what you will. You will see us come to you at some point, either maybe today or tomorrow, for a supplemental for one of these positions. This has gone through. Our allocation is going to go from around $500,000 a year to $580 in the first year of 24. So for this year, we'll see $580,000 in our around that much in our allocation, and then for the second year up to $700,000. So we're going to see some big changes in child welfare, and I just wanted to put this on your radar to say that we're coming to the end of this workload study. It's going to have some pretty big impacts for big counties. There are some counties who the recommended number of caseworkers needed are around like 30 or 40. So it's a whole system overhaul, and what they're looking at right now, the budget's already been approved, and they're kind of taking baby steps around how how it informs the allocation methodology. So that's child welfare. So to follow that, in 2022, they thought, okay, well, we did this with child welfare, and we just presented to you at our last Board of Social Services kind of a lot of the big lifting that's happening right now in economic services with the public health emergency ending, people still applying, not qualifying, but still having to work a lot of those cases. There are some pretty big sanctions happening around SNAP right now and some of the public benefits. So they, in legislation, had moved through the public assistance funding model, where they're actually breaking down and looking at every single work task that you do in economic assistance and putting kind of an average time around it. And they're breaking it through big counties, medium counties, small counties, and they have 2 resort counties in those small counties. They're just doing it in a sample size. So we're right in the middle of this right now. There's not recommendations yet, but we suspect that in the next year or 2, we'll be coming back to you. I believe there will be more recommendations for additional staffing. It's one of the reasons both child welfare and economic assistance has felt just such a pinch in their staffing. I mean, we've had pretty high turnover in both of those, and it's because there's more work than we have people. What's nice is that it's being recognized, and they're putting some attention and budget towards it as well. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions.
Good.
I don't see any. Go ahead. Or keep going, Lindsay, that is.
So I have a question.
oh,
Will
Kelly
we
has
be
a question.
funding the 0.09% employee?
The 0.91%.
Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So what we're gonna do, we don't feel like we can bring 2 on right away. So, and the budget wasn't really set up for that either. So we're gonna bring on 1 that will come into the supplemental this week. And then for next year's budget, we will write 2 additional, well, the 1 plus another 1, as well. And because of that, there's also some statutory, or just best practice requirements around then having a supervisor and kind of some different things. So you're going to see that come up as well. But we will plan to, and as a reminder, these allocations are 80/20 reimbursements. So the state reimburses 80% of these salaries, and then we're responsible for 20%. In that 80%, we tend to overspend our child welfare and economic services. We overspend every year. And child welfare is actually, it's not quite as risky to overspend because they close out at the end of the year. There's a lot of counties that underspend and the state ends up closing out. We're right in the mitigation process right now, but we've actually never had to pay money back to the state. We always close out. So we're not as worried about that one.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, the bigger question would be, where are we gonna find all these workers? If
That
the
is a
state's looking
great
at
question,
200 and
Patrick.
something, and some counties 30 to 40, 20 to 40, even for us to find 1 or 1.91, yeah.
Yeah, we're really lucky in the Valley to have our pipeline program through the University of Denver, the social work program. That's where we recruit a lot of talent from those programs. I don't know how to answer. I think that's part of the kind of hesitancy on some of the counties and especially more of the rural ones who have additional positions that they're not sure how they're going to find the people.
And is that their extension office in Glenwood on Main Street? For
Yes.
Denver, University of Denver, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's it for questions. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to hand it over now to Kelly Kirkpatrick to talk about some child welfare updates as well through the legislative updates. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is that on? Okay, thank you. The first one we have up is a high acuity crisis for children and youth. It's House Bill 241038. Kind of the point of this one is to address some of the less than great impacts of Families First, specifically that Families First requires like a higher level of residential treatment for kids who need that level of care. And unfortunately, the result of that has been that there's less beds available than there are kids that need that level of care. what is happening in other counties that we're seeing is that when a child comes in like this and there's not a place for them to go, the county workers are spending overnights in hotels with them, which maybe would work for a night here and there. That's sort of our regular practice if we have a situation that we can't manage that night, but it is going on for some time, weeks if not months. Of course, if a normal foster care family can't handle this level of care needed, I'm not quite sure how us or our workers would be able to do that. And the workaround that some counties do is they have 2 staff stay with this child 24/7. Unfortunately, that's my entire staff. So if we were to get one of these cases, we'd be in hot water for a bit until we managed. Lindsay and I have been working locally here to try to find some sort of stopgap measures for this. One that Lindsay's been working on has been finding and working with like the region essentially to have foster care that is set up to handle this level of care, paid constantly, so that when one of us, like our county or potentially Garfield or Eagle, have a situation come up, this child could go there instead of needing to stay with staff. We're also starting to look at some other options, but that's essentially the meat of this bill.
Can you illustrate a circumstance where that a child would need this level of care?
How that might happen? Yep. Mental health or behavioral issues. These cases are often involving Division of Youth Services issues, drugs, violence, or mental health situations, potentially threats to their self or others, although there's mental health services for that specifically. But if it's deemed to be something that we need to handle, those are the types of situations we would face.
And because they're not receiving the care they need in the home.
Yeah,
for
like
those
the homes
things,
can't care
for those
them.
behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they need a higher level of care, but there isn't one available, and so caseworkers are stepping in to try and provide that, but we're really not qualified.
What's the safety factor for our staff being in a hotel room for that period of time with a child with aggressive behaviors?
It's certainly concerning. That's
Yeah.
why Lindsay and I are working hard to get ahead of that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Let's see, the next one that I have to go over, if that was all on that one, is the Child Welfare System Tools. This is House Bill 24-1046. And this one is changing a few practices statewide, making it so that mandatory reporters are required to report any incident of domestic violence when there's a child in the house, whether or not the child witnessed it, et cetera. I think this is a really great thing. It's going to require a few practice changes on our end, as well as training our mandated reporters, and will certainly result in an increased number of assessments. Any questions on that one?
Good thing we're hiring a new child welfare case manager.
Certainly. And then the last one that I was going to talk about today is Senate Bill 24-200, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion in Child Welfare. This one essentially addresses the disproportionality that exists in the child welfare system, meaning children of color and families of color or other outlying systems are considerably more likely to encounter child welfare caseworkers services or even to be placed out of home during their lives. I certainly I'm concerned that I see this in Pitkin County, and also I don't have the data to back that up. Right now we're doing some work to get ahead of this and see where either our practices or our mandated reporters can be trained to address some of these issues. This bill is really training heavy. There's going to be a lot of EDI training provided to county staff. And yep, something that we've been trying to get ahead of, just as far as how our data is input into the system, like where are they drawing their numbers from, which button was it we're supposed to click, because this, the information is sort of spread out over our trail system.
Can I reflect back what I think I heard? So that more children of color in our community are entering the child welfare system.
That's my
than
suspicion in our
proportionally in the
community.
population.
It's a
Yeah.
certainty nationwide,
Yeah.
and even at the state level. I suspect I would see the same thing here, but I haven't dug into those numbers clearly.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's that's all I
Yeah,
had.
okay, great, thank you. What's on our next?
All right, I'm going to speak a little bit to these two bills that passed in this last season through Economic Services. The first one, House Bill 241322, really interesting. This is one of the first times that we're actually seeing, not through like housing authorities or housing voucher programs, but through HICPUF, some attention put towards those that are unhoused for actual housing assistance programs, housing related support services, things like that. So it's going to be really interesting to follow this one. Also, this goes for not just housing, but for nutrition as well. It's kind of a high in the sky one that's really, it really is innovative, and it will be
Hey, Lindsay, you're freezing up on us.
just how this, can you hear me?
We
Hotel.
can now. I don't know if turning off your camera would make a difference. We might lose your
Let's try.
screen. Okay, yep, screen's still there, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Try that.
Okay, let me try that. So, I think all I was saying was that it'll be really interesting to see how this actually plays out through our current systems. It's interesting and exciting, and it's going to be more work for economic assistance technicians because it's a new program where we're now looking at homelessness in a different way. Did you hear that? Did everybody hear that?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Great. The other one, House Bill 241229, presumptive eligibility for long-term care. I'm not sure you're aware, but to be able to qualify for long-term care, there were a lot of hoops that had to be jumped through. So essentially what's happening and beginning in January of 2026, it's going to remove requirements of a full assessment for a person in need of long-term services and supports for the appropriate level of care before the person is presumed eligible for the medical assistance program. So it essentially helps someone get into long-term care, even if they're waiting on what's happening with their eligibility for some of that. There's been a few counties who have been piloting this, and they've been working through some of the kinks of it, but this could be this could also be a really great new way to help people basically get the services for long-term care that they need. So I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions.
Questions from I don't see Steve anymore.
I have a question.
Patty,
Do we
go
have a
ahead.
definition of long-term care? Is it skilled nursing care? Is it care with rehabilitation? You know, I just went through quite a ordeal with long-term care. So everybody, you classify at all these different levels. So is there any definition of that anywhere?
I can respond that, Lindsay. Well, it's depending on the assess value that that Northwest company does it. Is depending on the health of the client or the needs that it needs to be done. That they
So
may
it could
require.
be acute care, acute nursing care, or it could be just rehab with kind of like assistance and that kind of, so there's all
Yes.
those different levels.
Yeah, there's different.
And how does that impact when our long-term care facilities are not in our county?
Well, that's this actually this the HB 241229 that legislative sorry, but that appears that will help the hospitals for they can't go straight to a long-term care because in our part to make the eligibility of the program, it can take up to 45 days.
Or longer.
Or longer, yes, depending on the issue.
But I'm just saying, is there any conflict with the fact that they might be an inpatient at Aspen Valley Hospital, but our long-term care facility is in Carbondale, which is in Garfield County?
Right, sometimes,
There's no, you have to be within your own, okay.
yeah,
Just to clarify.
sometimes they will, refer either to Denver or Grand Junction.
Yeah, I know that one.
and for that, we cannot tell them
Okay.
where to go. It's
Okay,
just.
great, thank you.
I would just add that, like, long-term care doesn't care where you live or where the facility is.
As long as the care is there.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Veteran Services, is that up next?
I think
No, next up we have senior services.
Senior
We
services.
we presented the veteran services last time, so we're gonna skip that one
Got it.
and go right over to senior services. So take it away, Chad.
Thanks. Chad Fedovitz, Manager of Senior Services. I'll be brief. There's quite a few in here. We're definitely not talking about all the bills in the memo, just highlighting a few. The two I wanted to highlight are the Senior Housing Income Tax Credit, 1052, which is just an extension of a bill from 2021 and 2022. So it's coming back from before-ish COVID. So really glad that's coming back. And that provides a tax credit for older adults. And then Senate Bill 111, Senior Primary Residence Prop Tax Reduction. This is creating a new subclass of, let's say, residential units, particularly toward older adults, for a reduction of their property taxes.
Got it.
There were many bills affecting older adults this session, more than I have seen in my 8 years here.
Hey, Steve, is your hand up? It's a different hand. Oh, there's a hand. Oh, that's the cursor. That's funny. Okay. All
I'll
right.
just clarify, if I understand correctly, the residential property tax is portable now in a way that it wasn't.
Yes, there have been efforts for a number of years to make it portable.
Yeah.
Instead of you're stuck wherever you are. So you couldn't downsize. There was no incentive to downsize in your community as far as the state goes. And now that portability is allowed, so you if you do reside in a residence for the qualified time and you move to downsize, that's still the time record follows you. So if you want to downsize from a 4-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom house, you're incentivized to do that at the state level for older adults.
Oh, well, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Positives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do I look surprised?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we now?
Chad, do you want to talk about the postponed bill? I don't know too much about this one. Do you know?
Yeah, sure. So there was a bill proposed that was been indefinitely postponed, Senate Bill 24-136, Uniform Guardianship and Conservator Act. This was a thesaurus of a bill. I think it was over 100 pages long. And that was maybe one of many reasons why it was postponed, because it was so dense. Trying to clarify and clean up some of the language around having an Office of Guardianship and Conservatorship in the state of Colorado and how it would be locally administered or regionally at best. So there's still, in my professional opinion, a lot more work to be done in clarifying what is that bill really targeting as far as supporting these topics of guardianship and conservatorship. Many other states do have an office on these subjects. Colorado is starting to work on one, but it's conservatorship and guardianship in relation to, if you think of like child welfare, we're talking about competent adults in a different way than we talk about young children. So it's very serious work to have someone be a guardian over you. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to you can no longer testify to your own rights. Somebody else has to do that. And we take that very seriously in Colorado. Not that other states don't. And so I think the efforts to postpone it is to really make sure we do it right. And having a bill that's 100 pages long, it takes a while to get it right, I would say.
Gosh, the NPR had a whole thing on this earlier this year with some like real nightmare stories of people who were placed under
Yeah.
guardianship.
And that's why I think this topic is it's a very needed and important topic. It does more adversely affect older adults, people with some type of mental or capacity disability, but not just older adults in general. So again, stepping into me acting on your behalf is a quite serious issue. So I think we want to do our best to do it right.
Thanks,
That's my short version.
Thank you for that. Interesting. So is that all of it, or is there anything else?
That is it. Unless there's
it.
any other questions from the memo.
So we've already voted on our items. This was just a legislative update. Well, we're pretty much a little bit ahead of schedule, which is always fun. I could just take a motion to,
Well, can I ask
please,
a
yeah,
question?
please do.
Lindsay, if you guys are already thinking about some priority bills, in addition to the one that you had mentioned, it would be great for us to start communicating that. I think Levi will probably be the person, I would guess, that would kind of hold all of that as the summer requires that for CCI at the very least, and usually towards the end of summer, fall, that we start to advocate for those priorities in our member groups. So I think it'd be some great work to do over the summer to get aligned on what that is. And if there's any you want to let us know now beyond the changing the rule for CCAP, let us know.
Yeah, I think the kind of general, that's great. Thank you, Kelly. And if we can streamline that system as well, so I can be communicating with Levi, that would be great. I think the kind of overarching of so much of this is that because of COVID and inflation and things that have happened, the gap is just getting bigger and bigger. And we're seeing that locally. We're seeing those folks no longer be eligible for a lot of the programs that we have. It's more complex, the work in child welfare and adult protection and senior services. Like, the work is just getting more and more complex now because the issues are now, well, they've always kind of been, but they're being rooted more and more in poverty, and poverty in Pitkin County looks very different than it does at the federal level. So I think that's kind of when you hear some of those bills that, that are starting to address some of those differences, that's where we need as much advocacy as we can get. But as the specific bills come up, I will make sure to communicate through Levi with some of those things.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, crew. Steve, questions? No, I don't see any. No one else?
No question, but I just wanted to thank Lindsay for being at CCI and John also for covering for the county. I think this is the first time forever just about that we haven't had a commissioner there.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for coming in. It's a large crew today. And thank you, Lindsay.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
I think that we need to,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you, motion to adjourn.
Second.
And we have a second, Patty and Kelly, all in favor?
Hi.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good
Bye,
to see you
nice
all.
to see you. Thank you.
Okay. And up next, we have West Mountain Regional, right? Housing. We're going to talk housing. We're a little bit ahead of
Actually, yeah.
schedule. We're actually,
I think April's
Do we want to do
April at the
future
county, at the state.
agendas?
I
or-
was
city
thinking
building.
about taking a quick break.
I'm here.
but- Oh,
Yes, she
April's here.
is.
We could, I'm going to do a 5-minute break and then we'll,
That'd be great. I know Ashley wants to join us. and
yeah,
so-
she'll be on her way down. Great. If that's all right. Okay, welcome back. It's Tuesday, May 28th, and this is the Commissioners' Work Session. And up next is the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition Good Deeds Funding Update. Ashley and April are here.
Hi,
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Is Commissioner Childs is online? Okay,
He, I think, is online, but he's not visible.
that's okay. Knowing he's there is enough.
He's here. Yeah, Steve's here. Okay.
Well, I can kick us off. Ashley Pearl, Picken County's Resiliency and Housing Director. I'm just kind of representing Picken County here and not wearing my coalition board hat, so try and stay in line. So the coalition came in front of you in February last, and we talked a lot about what the coalition's doing, kind of the annual plan, the strategic plan, things like that. And also April presented on the deed restriction purchase program, which is now called Good Deeds, or West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition Good Deeds. And you all generally supported the program, but had a couple specific questions for me. And then you had some others for April that she'll answer. But I wanted to go through the 3 questions you all had for staff and just answer those. And then I'll hand it over to April and she can talk about the program and things like that. So your 3 questions, as I remember them, or as I noted them when I rewatched, was wanted to know a little bit more about ARPA funding and how can ARPA funding be used to support this program. You wanted to know a little bit more about the status of general fund housing dollars and what was available there. And then a little bit of a general question around, we hear about housing a lot and what is going on and all these different initiatives and where does this fit in? So I'm just going to answer these 3 questions for you and then hand it over to April. So, yeah? No? Maybe? The first question is about ARPA. There we go. You all saw a similar slide to this a couple weeks when I did a longer work session with you focused on ARPA. But the American Rescue Plan dollars, we started with just over $4 million. We've to date made $3 million worth of commitments. You can see them listed there. They all have to do with childcare or kind of economic or social services in the community. We have yet to date to use any of our ARPA money on housing because it's pretty tricky to find something that aligns. We have $1.2 million remaining in funds, and that's broken up into this SLFRF fund, which is the more restrictive one, and the LATCF, which is the less restricted one. So, will you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So when thinking about how we use these monies going forward, this is a bunch of bullet points that you all have seen before on how I look at what to bring in front of you and what meets federal uses guidelines, what feels like we're impacting the community. But there's 2 there that we haven't talked about before. So I received BoCC direction from you all that we wanted to spend about 50% of our ARPA funds on housing. And that was last year when I brought to you, we were right about the 50% mark. And I said, there's a whole lot more you could do in childcare. And you said, let's not do any more in childcare. Let's go out and look for ways we can spend this on housing. I came back to you in October of 2023 with a whole lot of housing options. You said, we like all of these. I went back and I tried to build a lot of those out. A lot of them didn't come to fruition. A number of the programs weren't ready yet for funding. A number of them didn't meet the federal guidelines on how we use the money. There were a number of reasons. A lot of them aren't going to be ready to receive money until like 2026 or beyond. A number of them were architectural services or planning services, not actual like services or construction. A number of challenges with that. So the one that still does remain is the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition's Good Deeds program. However, since it is housing money, there's a couple more check boxes that we would have to meet in spending our ARPA money. If it's housing specific, it has to go towards the purchase or the construction of the actual home. So it can't go towards the activities previous to the home. So it couldn't go towards architectural services or building a building where you're then going to assemble a home. It would need to go towards the actual home. And it couldn't go towards something where you're like hiring a realtor to look at the market. It would need to go towards the actual purchase of the home. So that's why the Good Deeds program, I continue to bring it in front of you, because it does actually meet that checkbox, which not all the housing opportunities right now do. And then the other tricky one, if we're using ARPA money on housing, is if it's the SLFRF funds, they have to be used on low-income housing as defined by federal HUD guidelines. So that is very, very low income, which is really hard to find a project for here in the Valley. So for that reason, staff is recommending that if you want to use ARPA funding to support the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition's Good Deeds program, you have the more flexible ARPA money, which is the LATCF money, which right now is, you have $719,000 still remaining to spend. And that's a little bit more flexible, so you can use it on a housing program such as this.
How much is left? Oh, that
$719,000.
number. Okay, yeah.
$285.
And
I don't have
25
this.
cents.
I don't have the cents for you. So that you asked, can ARPA money be spent on this program, and how so? We're not recommending that you could spend the whole 1.2 million, but you could spend the full LATCF remainder if you wanted to on this, and that would meet all of those check boxes, minus the low income one, but that doesn't matter because we would be using LATCF.
Is the slurf is there any place in the Roaring Fork Valley where those funds could be used?
We could use them on homelessness support
Yeah.
programs, and I brought some of those to you a couple weeks
Right.
ago in our bigger ARPA picture.
Thank you.
And again, when we're talking about housing, you have the opportunity to either use ARPA funds or we can use our general fund housing dollars. So we had talked a little bit about you all wanting to reserve that $570,000 for the childcare, and then looking at LATCF for housing as well as your general fund for other housing stuff. But it's really tricky to use.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Patty?
So that clarifies for me the question when you said that the BoCC said we wouldn't spend any more on childcare, but we had talked about supplementing the stipend program. So that would come out of the SLRFA money, as
Slurfa.
Greg has now titled it. Would that come out of
Slurfer.
there?
Yes, and I'm going to come back to you in a separate work session
Thank
to
you.
follow
Thanks.
up on that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's how I'm holding it right now until I check in with you further, is you could use the remainder of that. As far as the Housing General Fund goes, we have $4.8 million. This is general fund money that the BoCC set aside last year to use specifically on housing. The ways we've used it to date is we've bought units on the free market that we then hold as the county and we rent to our county employees. And we also pulled our contribution to the APSHA home repair pilot program out of this money. There are many ways that we could use this money. A couple are up there on the screen. Phillips Infrastructure. We are going to be coming to you in a lot of work sessions this summer and into the fall with a lot more detailed Phillips info. For right now, we have a pretty big placeholder on what that infrastructure is going to cost. We did talk about the RFP that's out right now for homelessness strategy. I put in a placeholder of $150,000. We had talked about pulling that out of the general fund housing if we go forward with that. And then I do know, and Kelly and Francie, you probably know more about this, APSHA is going to consider at their next board meeting if they want to continue that home repair grant program, in which case they would want to make a request of us. So I just did put that in there as to
I
kind of
thought we already
preview
gave
that
them
for you.
200,000 for that.
We gave them $200,000 for the pilot program. If you all, as the APSHA board, decide to move forward with that, I've been given a heads up by APSHA staff that they would want to come back to the BoCC and ask for more money. And that's where we pulled it from before. So
I like it better when people come and give us some money myself.
And I'm sure you all have many other things that are placeholders in this general fund. These were some quick ones that I just wanted to toss out to show the breadth of how the county shows up in housing. So that's kind of the update on the general fund housing line item. And I apologize that it's not more detailed, but just as a little bit of a preview. And then your third question to me last time in February was, how does what the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition is proposing align with other housing initiatives? So where I sit from the staff perspective working on housing for the county, we focus on housing our county employees That's where we spend a decent amount of our money and our time. And then we focus a lot on redeveloping Phillips, both maintaining the existing mobile home park, redeveloping that, and then adding more housing. Aside from that, we don't play in a lot of housing spaces. So trying to remain neutral and really having my county hat on here, I do believe that the Coalition's Good Deeds program meets a lot of boxes that we don't have being met by another county housing program right now. So it gives you that opportunity to use housing funds on, or funds, ARPA funds on housing, which I know is something we've been trying to do for a while now. It also supports regional workforce housing, which is a place we're not currently playing. It's a development neutral approach. So as April will tell you, it's going out and buying houses that already exist. So it's not a development, growth, adding more density sort of thing. And I think it's interesting that it's a local challenge. Our AMIs, our high incomes, our housing market, our construction market, these are local challenges that we go to the state and we talk to them ad nauseum about how challenging it is. But they have yet to respond by giving us funding to address these unique local problems. So I do think the coalition is really showing up trying to say, well, then let's fund our local challenges with local money. So it does give Pickens County a chance to kind of be responsive locally.
Sorry, I just
Yeah.
want to check in. I heard Steve. Oh, thank you. Thanks. I heard Steve couldn't hear, so I just want to have a check in. Steve, can you hear us now? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Great.
Question, is there any way we can make a deal with the state or another county regarding this SLURF funding? Could we spend it in their community where it could actually be spent in exchange for money from, say, the state for our projects?
I don't understand your question. Could you restate
Well, we've
it?
got this SLURF funding,
Yeah.
which seems to be really hard to spend here because we just don't have a place to spend it where it can make a difference for, the bang for the buck isn't there. I'm just wondering if that money can we trade money like we do with, what is it? It's not the TANF. What is it where we trade the credits? I'm just wondering, can
Yeah.
things like that be done? Does that ever come up?
Less
Could we spend the
so
money
with
elsewhere?
less so with ARPA funds. This is federal pass-through money,
Right.
so you can spend it however you want. It's not bound by our Pickens County boundaries, but it does have to meet an identified impact from COVID, and it has to go directly towards solving that impact. The LATCF funds just have to go towards COVID
Right.
recovery in a much broader sense. So we talked last time, a couple weeks ago, about spending the remainder of those the SLURF funds, as we're now calling them, on childcare, and you'll be able to easily use them on
We'll be able to
those.
spend it on that.
If you were
Thought
looking
so.
to spend it on other things, we can, again, get more creative. But as far as housing is concerned, I feel like I've reached a bit of the bottom of the barrel on bringing housing opportunities forward for you for spending those SLURF funds.
Got it. Thank you for that. Just wanted you're talking about how the state's just not cooperating. I thought, well, what if we went to them and said, hey, we can help
Yeah.
in our way if you can help us, but
I don't think they'd let you
Horse
give
trading.
$1 here to get $1 there. I don't think that would.
seems to
Well,
happen.
less restricted is what he means, I think. If we give away the restricted funds to somebody who's going to use them that way, then we get money back that's not restricted. Isn't that
Thank
what you
you.
mean?
That's kind of what I
Yeah,
was.
that's trading
Horse trading.
currency.
And it is federal.
Arbitrage.
It's federal money, so
Creative
unfortunately,
idea.
the relationships we have with the state are
Got
not
it.
terribly
Well,
helpful
I
in this case.
figured you'd have an answer. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think, hopefully, will you all tell me, you asked 3 questions last time of me as staff around ARPA, the general fund housing dollars, and just kind of where does this
Can you
fit
go
in the
back
bigger
to the
picture?
3 questions again, just so I can see them?
Yeah.
Thank you. My question was, how does a good deeds program align with other county housing programs? I was thinking, well, there are our other county housing programs, but I was thinking other counties. How are the other counties involved in this, engaging with this? And is there a difference or similarity, or
You mean like
it'd
Eagle
be
and
nice to know
Garfield?
what they're doing, how much they're spending, what are they on the hook for? I'd love to just understand that.
I think you'll probably answer that in your.
That was probably in your presentation, right?
I can answer it now, or I can get to it,
You can
whichever
get
you
to
want.
it. I'll let you get to it.
Okay.
Can
Go ahead.
I just had an idea. I wonder, could we get Eagle County to administer a first last deposit program with our
Slurf
funding
or the other one? LATSFA.
for low income?
Oh, like if Picking County were to run a first last deposit program, could we have Eagle County administer for it?
Since they're already doing one.
I would have to look into that further. I think that when
If we really wanted to
yeah.
spend that money on housing for low income, if they already have
Maybe
a
that's the
program
way to do it.
going. you
I
know.
think we would need to, that program just hasn't been built out
Yeah.
that much because the state is running a very similar program and their income limits were decently high. So we felt like we didn't need to step in regionally to fill a gap. So the coalition.
We, the coalition.
We, the coalition, as well as we, Picken County internally, have kind of put both rental programs just a little bit on pause at the moment to see the uptick in people using the state's program. But certainly something we can look into as funding dries up in other areas and things like that.
Francie?
So I really like our county's buy down program. I don't know what we call it. Our equivalent of the good deeds. Yeah, that one. I still am concerned about this one. I know I was a couple of weeks ago when you were here too, just because first of all, it doesn't address low income people. And I know that middle income people need help as well. I understand that. And the middle income people, I mean, we want them all to stay, but it's hard for them to stay here. And so I know it's helpful that way. It's just that it's going to affect maybe two people, two families. You know, that's just hard for me. That's a lot of money from our funds to only support two families when we have so many families in need. That's my concern with it.
'Cause you're
I
saying
mean, I
'cause of
think
the-
it's great that it doesn't create any more development. I love that part of it. And
Commissioner,
You're saying the cost of housing, splitting this 700,000 by 2 would be 2
that's the down
homes
payment part.
because of our expenses, but, yeah, maybe you can further clarify that.
yeah, so depending on how much Picken County contributes, I understand that you're relating that to like the amount that you could participate with. One of our huge goals is in leveraging the county and all of our municipalities' funding to also ask for and receive matches from philanthropic organizations, from donors. And so they are, they have been made aware that we're working on this, and they're very interested in participating. They're waiting to see how well and how much local government shows up to help in handling this issue. And so I think there's a really great chance that we're able to leverage whatever money that we can get from our local governments. And then I would also say that there are many families that are interested. I don't know if you were trying to say like there might not be that many.
No, I was.
Oh, okay. I was like, there are lots of people that
I
are
know.
very interested.
I know it's a need to house our middle income people. I know that.
And then the third thing that I would say is that this is the cheapest way for you to be able to help a family, right? I mean, to build someone a home is costing,
know.
right? And so like this is while it feels limiting, it is right now the best thing that we've got.
Much less expensive.
Yeah.
than building. Right.
And then I can show you the kind of the programs that we have and the way they addressed low income families versus middle income and high income. And I can get straight to those, or I can walk through. I'm happy to do
Okay, that'd be
whatever.
great. Thank
Yeah.
you, April.
Yeah, I'm happy to go however quickly you all want to go through
Just
this.
why don't you give us your presentation? I'm sure more questions will come
Okay.
up, and then we'll,
Yeah. Okay, great.
it'll all come
All right. Well, just as a reminder, this is the way that we're structured. These are our members. The coalition was really built with this idea of being a supplement to all of the other housing programs that our region is launching. And that's because we don't have enough. We're not doing enough. And so we're not intended to be competitive with. And so we have been very thoughtful in the way that we have developed programs that are innovative, but successful, and that are thinking about this area regionally, because that our rural roadmaps grant told us that we need to be thinking about things more regionally, and working collaboratively and leveraging ourselves with each other, leveraging our skills, our resources, our funding to address something differently than we have tried before.
I really want to hear this, but I have to leave for just a minute.
Okay.
Be right back. You can keep going, and
Yeah.
I'll catch up.
Okay. I kind of want to wait.
You can tell us twice. Go ahead.
I did notice there's a county missing off that list.
Oh, and so you did ask about the counties, and I'll answer that question now, and while we wait on Commissioner Jacober
There
to come
wasn't
back.
room to include it.
Oh, yeah, it's at the end of the page,
fell
which
off.
is on
It
the
just
next
fell right
page.
off. So yes, our membership are the municipalities within our region, as well as Picken County and Eagle County and CMC and RAFTA. Garfield County has not chosen to participate yet. They have, they have not chosen to be members yet. I will say that there are members from Garfield County that are paying attention to what we're doing. There's also representatives from their municipalities that are paying attention to what we're doing, and trying to understand and kind of wait and see what programs we're launching, and will they serve their communities, and will they serve the region in the way that we have proposed.
Will our dollars go to those unincorporated portions of that the county, Garfield,
County,
or Newcastle, or Rifle?
they
And
could.
they're not members or part of this and helping to fund it, their governments?
They could. Yeah. So our region is to serve from Aspen to Parachute. And I know that it's difficult and responsible as an elected official to think about Picken County. Those of us that live in this region, I think that there are people who live in Eagle County that might be confused and think they live in Picken County. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't think of ourselves as living in a particular county. We think of ourselves as living in the Roaring Fork Valley,
Right.
confluence of the Roaring Fork and Colorado.
Oh, I totally understand
Yeah.
that. My concern is that as an elected official who has a fiscal responsibility, we're putting in how much money of Picken County dollars that are servicing people who aren't members or aren't within this organization. Not that there aren't needs there, but, you know, it's hard to be taking our dollars and spending them somewhere where they have a need, but they don't want to come to the table.
So
They're governments, not
yeah,
the people. But
yeah. And it's, I mean, we get this question not just from Picken County, right? We're getting this from everywhere. It's very difficult to accept spending your money in somewhere that could be on something else, right? I think that the best way to explain it is that, one, we're serving the people who serve us, okay? So I am positive that Picken County and its residents will benefit from a program that has affordable housing for this region. It will go to someone who is working in this region that is useful to the people and residents of Picken County. The second thing I would say is that the majority of people work in Picken County, right? You have more than 17,000 employees up here. Statistically, it's likely going to go to someone who's working in Picken County.
Well, there's no requirement that you can live in Newcastle who's not a member, but if you work in Picken County, you can qualify for this program.
There's no requirement yet, and we are trying to launch a very different program. All of the programs that we have seen in housing in our region are very much tied to geographic locations, and they're tied to their employers. And we were charged with coming up with something different. Our region needs to be able to be a little more fluid. Employees don't like to be tied to their job. You kind of lose a sense of community if you can't actually change jobs. And there could be a very great local job open, looking for a local employee, can't get one because the employee that they want is tied to their job, right? Their housing is tied to their job. They can't recruit from outside of this region because it's too expensive to live here. So we're in a bind, and we're trying to just look at it a little bit differently. That being said, this is all a pilot program. We are trying it very hard this way, the way that we were asked to try it, and the way that we can administer it without much, with the resources that we have. If we begin to administer a program for every contributor of funding, it looks, this organization and the programs that we launched look like we're just a house for administering different employers.
Well, but we're
affordable
taking
housing
Picken
program.
County dollars And I don't disagree, and I don't necessarily agree at the same time. But it's kind of like RAFTA, when RAFTA got set up, and Eagle County didn't want to be a partner, but they gave 100,000 here, 100,000 there. They pitched in some dollar amount every year, but not like the rest of the municipalities and counties. So that for me is a hard sell to my constituents.
It's interesting. You can look at it, and I thank you for bringing it up, because I that's something that I get feedback on as well and have trouble with. The thing is, the worst case scenario for me would be that we're funding housing for, say, an employee of Exxon who lives in western Garfield County who's working on the gas lines. We're doing everything we can to electrify, and it's just that is a hard one. On the other hand, any of these other counties could be subsidizing housing for somebody who works up valley in our community, and they probably would choke on that just as I would. So it goes both ways, and I do appreciate it, and we probably are the benefactors, but I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it
That's a
goes
hard
both
one.
ways, but we're putting in the dollars.
Well, that was the next one, is like the amount of money being put in is always another question as well, because it seems like we're like 4 or 5 or 6 times as much, but I'm not sure if
We
that's
haven't
accurate.
gotten to the 2 million,
We haven't
and
gotten
she's
there yet.
working on it.
I'm working on it. We're getting there. I'm warming you up. You're warming me up.
There was one other part
Well-
of that. Hold on just a sec. Oh, I keep hearing you saying that you don't feel like you're part of the community if your housing is tied to your employer. I want proof of that. I hear it bandied about, but I don't know if it's true.
So
I
the
don't know
school
if that,
district.
maybe I misspoke. Not
No, I've
necessarily
heard
not
other
part of
people
the
say it, not
community.
just you. I'm not pointing
It's
at
a
you.
more difficult, you're tied to your employer. Let's say teacher, for example, you've taught for 15 years and you have school district housing.
Right.
You really hate teaching at this moment, right? Like you want out of teaching really bad, and you could take a different job in any other community in the world. Here, you're going to lose your housing, so you just continue teaching, and the students have a teacher who hates teaching. Like, you know what I mean? It's just
Worst case
it's a
scenario,
very
yeah.
restricting place. Yeah, I did want to answer one question. Can't go to somebody in Western Garfield County working for Exxon. Has to go to somebody who has a physical place of their employer is located here. They have to have a physical place of employment. Also, the home has to be within a certain distance of I-70 and 82. So you're not like buying a home on the Utah line of Garfield County. Yeah.
That's reassuring.
Right?
That's helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Garfield County is not a partner in this.
Right. That's what we're talking
And then
about. right?
one more
There are
thing.
people who work in our communities.
Yes, they do. Right.
that do
Just
that.
one,
Just like-
just
Yeah,
a
people that
question
work
about
in our
this.
community,
Yeah.
work in their community.
That's not per family. Is that a
They're not getting
family
option
income?
housing.
Yeah, so this is the incomes that are across the top. That's for a 2-person household in Pitkin County.
That's the total income for a 2-person household.
That's the
the
median.
middle range.
The one that
Yes, I get
yeah.
that, but that's what that means is
Yeah.
is a 2-person household total income.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then you'll see on the side the AMIs for Eagle County and Garfield County are a
Yeah.
little bit different. Okay. And so what this shows is not the situation that's happening in Pitkin County. These are the incomes in Pitkin County, and in a typical housing market, in a typical community, those that have a median income are beginning to be able to go into homeownership. They can start looking for something that's for sale. In a balanced community, if you earn the median income, you could afford the median home price. Okay? And so we'll look at what happens with Eagle County. I just want to show that the percentage of home sales that are affordable to someone at a median wage, how much has changed since 2015. So that's never been very affordable in Pitkin County, but now we're seeing in the Colorado River Valley how quickly that is dropping. So from 78% of those earning a median income could afford home ownership in 2015, down to less than 40% could afford home ownership in 2022.
That sounds really high for the Roaring Fork Valley. You mean there's actually 9% of home sale, affordable at the median income
In Pitkin County?
Hard to believe.
Yeah, I think it's the deed restrictions. I think it's APSHA units.
Thank you. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Which are tied to your work in Pitkin County.
Yes, yeah. Those are those 9% are tied to their work. Yeah.
What seems high to you?
Well, I
That
was just
even
looking at
9%.
9% seems high in our real estate environment, but I wasn't
Anybody
thinking
could
about
afford on a
affordable
median
affordable
income
housing.
to
Yeah.
buy a house.
Nobody could afford
9%? I think that's really low. 9% of the people who live here can afford a house?
If you're at the median wage.
Yes.
He's saying it's sad that it's
It's that
yeah.
low.
I think you're looking at it in different.
Oh, I thought you were saying it the opposite. I thought, are you not saying, what are you saying?
We've moved on.
That the price
Not
of housing
re-saying
in
it.
Picken County is ridiculously high, and that
Right. It
it's
seemed that
Okay.
if
Yeah.
9% of the people at the median wage could afford a home here is actually sounded high to me.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah.
He's not
Okay,
saying it in a
moving
good
right
way.
he's saying that the market is so high. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll go have a margarita
going.
after and sort this out.
So this is looking at this story for what that means. Okay, so if you made the median income, and you, in general, the rule is that you shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your income on housing. If you are, you're considered cost burdened. And so trying to keep people from being cost burdened, this is what they could afford. In Garfield County, if they made the median income, they could afford a home that cost $280,000. In Picken County, they could afford a home that cost $325,000.
Of which there are none.
There are none. Okay, so then let's look at these high income
Category
earners.
3.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All the way on. Yeah,
Top-tier
there are
employment.
APSHA ones. There are APSHA ones. Thank you, Kelly.
Where's
Yeah.
Eagle? Do you have Eagle in this?
I don't have Eagle
don't.
in this one.
It would be slightly higher than Picken County, right?
A little bit higher than Picken County, yeah.
It's hard because it's just our side of the mountain.
So if we look at income earners, so this is again for a 2-person household that's making around $300,000 collectively, that's 300% of the median income. They can afford a home in Garfield County that costs $850,000, and they can afford a home in Picken County that costs almost $1 million, again, of which there are none, except for APSHA units. So this is what I'm saying, the middle and high income earners, well, let's look at what is available, I'm sorry. So you asked about, what are the other housing programs that are being offered? So this is a stacked graph of the housing programs in our communities, and in general, what incomes they serve. And so in general, if you're making less than about $150,000, then you could qualify for the lotteries for affordable housing. If you make over $150,000, you begin to move out of that area of qualification and into what we call the missing middle. We do not have housing programs for people who are for couples who are making more than $150,000 a year. And so that housing program is not available to them, and then the market is not available to them. The market is
Nothing's available to them.
Nothing is available to them, and that's why we're losing our missing middle, right? We're losing those high income earners. They're moving to different, because they definitely want to be in home ownership. In every other community in the world, they could afford home ownership. But living here just puts them into this really high rental market. And because they're in the high rental market and can pay high rents, they're driving the rental market crazy, right? And so those who want to be or can only be renters are being in a competition with high income earners who can pay really high rents. And so our low income earners are having to, are experiencing a lot of cost burden even in renting because they're in a rental market where it's, skewed towards high income earners. Okay, so how do you get out of affordable housing, or how can you address affordable housing? And I know Ashley has talked about this with you all before, and you know it. You can construct affordable housing. You can buy land and build new developments. You can conserve and convert the housing that's available here, so using existing homes. That's what we're going to talk about a lot today. You can change codes and policies so that affordable housing becomes easier to build. And then we just can't do any of these things without some cash.
How could changing codes make housing more affordable?
If the codes were less restrictive, then you could do lots of things, use different materials, find different land.
Cheap house buildings.
Cheaper tap fees, cheaper permits, all kinds of, you can do a lot with changing codes.
Yeah, that's very true. In my neighborhood, we have 2 empty lots at Smuggler Trailer Court. Empty lots because people can't afford to go through the city's building codes. That's part of it. Not all of it, but it's a substantial part.
It's a piece of it. You could build denser, which is more, you get economies of scale as you build denser
That's the other thing
units.
with the land use, getting rid of parking minimums. locations near transit. I mean, if you could do quotas, you could do non-resident ownership quotas. I mean,
Or simple things like you have to put on a 50 square foot covered doorway and patio facing the public street in the trailer court. Our streets are private, not public, but we still have to follow that code.
Well, and it really means less environmentally sound structures.
Well,
It
if we
depends on which
relax those
codes.
codes, yeah, if you relax the energy
Porch on the
codes.
front is environmental. When modulars don't come with porches facing the ends, they come in the middle of the building.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So the coalition has focused hard on development neutral pilot programs. So we had a consultant that helped us examine the best of the best housing programs that are out there. And then the board evaluated all of those programs and identified which would work best in this region, given all of the other housing programs that we have and the ideas that we want to work regionally and innovatively and not in redundancy for what's already being offered. And so these were the 3 programs that the board selected, and we intend to do this rental funds assistance program that Kelly and Ashley were talking about earlier. We also hope to do an ADU incentive program, so helping those that are already in home ownership increase their income while also housing a local worker. And then this one that we're focused on first is because we believe we can make the most difference the quickest is this deed restriction program for home buyers. These are people who want to get into home ownership.
Talked about how that is more effective than first and last month rent for more low-income people. Talk to me about that a little bit.
So these are all the programs that are already in existence, which help low-income earners. And additionally, Habitat for Humanity is not on here, but they're also working in this space where there is assistance for low-income earners. Ashley was mentioning earlier, the state offers incentive programs. And so we're trying to fill a gap, not compete with these programs just yet.
Okay.
Now, do you see how these strategies and the what's it called? Go back sorry.
It's okay.
The development neutral programs and the strategies you had in this slide previously might all have to work together in concert, right? They're going to be, it's not one, you pick one, it's pick combinations of all of them perhaps.
Exactly, yeah. And I will say, there is a lot of new development happening, right? And there is a lot of affordable housing development happening. It's not quite enough. It's still less than 50% of the development that's in the pipeline. But that is happening. Code and policy changes our communities are constantly reflecting on how do we, construct ourselves better to meet all of our community's goals. Those take a very long time to become effective, right? It takes a long time to make a code change and adopt it and then begin to see it being implemented. It takes years. What we're talking about doing is quick because we need housing right now. And so this is the Good Deeds program.
Which takes years.
This is the quick, easy, least expensive option. 2 for 1 if you buy right now.
Well, and I would say, I mean, we all saw, and I think this will come back in a different work session, but we all saw the valuation increases in what used to be the properties on the free market that were available are no longer available. They've all gone up. So this would get to the whatever of those that are still available,
Right.
Because it's because it's targeting that
Even if it's a few, it's still a few.
range. Yeah.
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 And I think what you're getting at, Kelly, is
Losing
like
less of that more affordable inventory than we've bled out over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
So like when we saw in the heat map that Ann did about how the value increases, that was like predominantly for property that used to be affordable to people on the free market for workforce here. All that got snatched up, and this program, because of and I think April will go into it, the limitations on what the cost can be and the amount of subsidy, would go after whatever is still remaining of those, but keep them deed
Affordable.
restricted. Yeah.
Reasonably affordable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So the goal of the program is to take what's available on the free market that is out of reach, just out of reach of these high income earners, and help them go, would show up at the closing with an amount of funding that would buy the deed restriction so that they could then buy that home.
I definitely get how that works.
Yeah.
And so how many people are in the pipeline for this?
Well, just by word of mouth, I have about 15 people on my list.
And how many houses are available in the valley?
Ooh, I don't know that one. I can look that
About
up if you need me to.
2.
I think Glenwood has some.
I've been looking at the real estate market.
So,
And what are the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And what are the requirements for being eligible for this again?
okay. So the requirements are pretty simple. It's that you have to be employed by someone in this region. So you cannot be a remote worker working.
Can't work for Exxon.
You can't work. Yes, those
Unless
kinds
they
of
have
things.
a local office.
If they have a local office, yeah.
I work in the local office.
You have to maintain that employment, and we recertify our buyers annually. You have to use this home as your primary residence, and you cannot own any other residential property anywhere.
Anywhere like in
Anywhere.
North Africa?
Yep. You cannot own any other residential property. Yeah. Our thought there is that if you can afford other assets and other residential property, you're probably not someone that this program needs to assist.
Well, we discussed that at length with APCHA and the watershed and all that, but you could still own property in North Africa.
I mean, again, it's just a different program. Like,
Interesting.
yeah. And so then the other requirement is that, or the other characterization of this program is that then the home is locked in at that price, and you have a maximum resale price, and you can only appreciate at 3% annually.
No, it says guaranteed 3%. Is that what you're saying?
It's a
Is it tied to CPI?
guarantee is misleading. It's a 3% simple interest annually for your maximum sale price.
Maximum,
It's not
or
guaranteed that you
CPI.
get your maximum sale price.
What do you mean by interest? You mean increase in value?
It appreciates,
It appreciates.
Yeah.
but
I
it
wouldn't
doesn't
call that
appreciate a
interest.
guaranteed 3%. Is that what you're saying?
What if the market
As
drops?
opposed to compound.
What's that? Is it?
It's the same as APCHA.
It's
It's
an-
just the wording up there is a little tricky.
Sorry.
So if we go into a recession and everybody's free market house drops by 50 or 60% in value, do these keep going up at 3%?
Their sale price, their asking price can go up by 3%.
Can, but must it? If the market drops.
They're still subject to selling their property, to selling their home.
If the market drops, it doesn't have to increase.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't
It's
have
just,
to, but
it's
it
an,
still
it's an
can.
RO unit.
But because it's already undervalued, it probably will.
Yeah. But there have been times, we work really closely with Kim Bell Williams from Eagle County, who runs the same program, and she's been at housing for a long time, and she said, there's a lot of times during the last 20 years where even affordable units that are price capped have not sold for their maximum price, which is hard to imagine in this particular day. But even just 10 years ago,
Recession,
Yeah, but 2009, everything
Yeah,
crashed.
exactly.
yeah,
Right.
you weren't even
But
getting
these kept
bids
going
on
up
some
then in
units.
cases. Right.
They're not selling for their asking price because they're selling for twice as much.
You're doing a good job selling this, April.
All right, thank you.
And what capital improvements accepted, is that the same list pretty much as APCHA? So it's not high-end quartz countertops or?
We're going to follow Eagle County's guidance on capital improvements, and that came from the recommendation of APSHA staff too. They also believe Eagle County's is structured a little better. I can bring back the details of that if you're
I'm
interested.
just
but
wondering
it's
because
like
it just leaves
it's
that
like
pretty open.
an acceptance of certain things, and then they did a depreciation schedule, and
And 10%.
Yeah, I
the
know,
value
but
of your
we
house.
also have a list of what is acceptable improvement and what is beyond.
beyond acceptable. Yeah.
At least I thought we did.
So, and then the details here are that, again, as a reminder, we're talking about offering the 30% of the contracted price in exchange for the deed restriction on the property. And we are willing to go up to homes that are being sold for $1.5 million in Basalt and Up Valley into Pickens County, and then $1.2 million in the Middle Valley from Glenwood to Carbondale, and then $800,000 in those Down Valley of Glenwood Springs.
So if somebody lives in Eagle County, they can do this, or they can do the Eagle County program. They would qualify for either.
We need to work out the details with Eagle County. Kim is asking that question of her board right now, how they want to administer the cells in Eagle County.
Okay.
On this side.
On this side in Eagle County.
I mean,
Right
they're-
now in Eagle County, on this side, you can participate in Eagle County's program.
Yeah.
They're trying to see if they're going to modify
Which
that
are,
to match
have
our program.
less stringent requirements, as I understand it.
They have the same requirements. Their values don't go as high. Right now, Eagle County is only going to homes for $850,000. They're also talking to the board about going up to 1.2 million because they're not reaching all of the portions of their county that they need to. Because
And do you have to work there? Because when I talked to Kim, they had really relaxed requirements for, like, only residency, not work.
My understanding is she uses the term brick and mortar, so you must work for a local institution. You cannot live in that home and work remotely for a company in Silicon Valley or something. So it's that same local workforce.
I know, that was
for a
just different
local-
from a conversation I had with her, so maybe they've changed that in recent years.
Maybe they
but
modified
Thank
it,
you, yeah.
Francie,
So I was like, how do you get away with that?
I have a question about how the purchase is structured. So does this organization, and in fact does Pickens County, put the 30,000 down as cash, and then the buyer assumes the entire mortgage? Or do we put down like 10% altogether, and how does that work? Do we put in the full cash at the sale?
So let's take $1 million home because the math is easy for me. If they were purchasing $1 million home, we would show up with $300,000 at the
At
closing,
closing.
and they would need to show up with $700,000. However, they acquire their $700,000. They can participate in other housing assistance programs. They have to have at least 3% of their down payment
Oh, okay.
because we want people who are
Okay,
invested
so
in this.
ours is not the down payment. They have to also
We do not offer down payment assistance, but they
cash at
can
closing.
they can receive that from other programs if they can qualify.
Okay.
But kind of it's a little bit separated. They just work out with their lender how they come in with the remainder amount.
Well, they wouldn't need anything from the bank. If we come in with 300,000, they're not
They
going to
wouldn't.
need anything.
For certain lending programs. So I did talk with local lenders. One, because of their risk portfolio, would count our contribution as a down payment. The other, like Alpine Bank, does not count that as a down payment. So so in their situation, right, the buyer still needs to show up with the buyer's lending options are
Limited.
set based on what they can show up with.
And that is similar to how we structured our employee program, is that we still wanted them to have some
Skin in the
finance,
game.
some skin in the game.
3% of their amount or whatever our percent is. That's amazing about Alpine Bank. They're such a generous bank. That seems stringent. Anyway. That's what
It
it
may
is.
have something to do with your risk profile.
Well, I would think the county would be pretty risk-proof compared to.
No, I know, I'm just saying your your ability to meet your own mortgage is
Yeah.
better demonstrated if you can
Right.
save 3%
Yeah.
of your, funding to show up at down payment.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway.
That answered that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm
Okay.
speculating.
Okay, so wrapping things up, again, we are looking for local governments to take the lead.
There's that 2 million, Greg.
I know.
We have commitments from Carbondale, Snowmass, and Glenwood Springs. We're speaking with Aspen in a few weeks, speaking with Aspen and Basalt in a few weeks. Aspen has budgeted $450,000 for this program, so we'll see what they're able to show up with. And our intent in trying to collect these kinds of funds is, again, to also leverage that for a philanthropic match. Our goal is to do 30 homes. Our goal in our strategic plan is to do 30 homes by 2026, which we believe we could do with about $6 million. Eagle County has been administering this program for almost 3 years now. They've done over 65 homes. It's their most successful most requested affordable housing program that they have. Breckenridge has done this for about 2 years now. They've done over 40 homes in a program similar to this. So it's not a risky program is what I'm trying to assure you of. It is a successful program, and it is much less politically complicated to buy homes off the free market than it is to try to construct and build. It's also much less expensive, and much quicker. How long would it take to build 30 affordable units in Pickens County right now?
Question about your philanthropic
Talking about Phillips for.
I know, we need
10
money to
years.
build our own, so.
philanthropic match. Where are you looking for money?
We have a funding strategies advisory committee that have connections to local philanthropic families that
So it's local.
it's local.
Is it regional and national as well, or?
I am attending a conference in a couple of weeks and will be given the opportunity to speak with some state family foundations, like Gates Family Foundation, Better Family, things like that, to see if they're interested in programs like this. But yeah, it would be local.
Got it. Okay.
Don't mention Aspen.
Aspen what? Don't say the
mention
words
Aspen
Aspen.
when you're talking to those people.
They'll say you have
Talk
money at
about
home.
Glenwood Springs and, yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't like that page.
All right, let's go to a page that Francie likes.
I don't like that 2 million.
Can I give some context for the 2 million? The reason we're here today is because April and some board members presented in February, and that's the initial number that had been tossed out at that point. At that point, April, Francie, you weren't here, but the other 4 who were here generally said, we're interested at that number, come back with some more details. I know from the staff side that we have a lot of competition for our housing sources. And so, of course, we've had, quieter conversations about, where we can come in, and that's why I wanted to present you your 2 funding options at the start of this. But as far as April's concerned, the last time we were in a public meeting, that was the number. So it's not to put up there to be offensive, but that is the last direction that we gave her. And so I think just recognizing that we do have that LATCF ARPA money available, and it can go towards this. And that's why I did want to share with you your general fund money.
719,000.
Yeah, 719.
So, can I, may?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think, the 700 and something thousand and change is fine to use for this. And we just, Phillips looms, and we don't have money coming in at this time. We don't know what might happen in the next year as far as housing funds. So I think we could always pitch in more money at a later date. I would be comfortable taking the difference, 200 and something thousand, whatever, I don't even do the math, to make it $1 million contribution. I am not comfortable going with the full 2 million. Not with all the other issues we have with our own affordable housing programs.
Thanks, Patty. What's the timeline on this? When do you want it? When would you need it if we were to break it up into tranches?
We are launching the program in July. So I need a commitment today and need to return with a contract for the funding that you have available so that we can let these potential buyers know. I need to run a program, and as soon as I let a buyer know, and then I need to know when I run out of money, so that we don't hang buyers on the line.
And so you're getting the same commitments today from all the other people who are putting in, or all the other entities, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, those, Carbondale, Snowmass, and Glenwood are all committed to that amount, in the process of putting the funds in our account. And then Aspen, we will see.
And Basalt,
And Basalt.
And don't know
lots of
yet.
question marks.
Sorry, I just don't have, they didn't budget, for the way that Aspen did. And so I don't know how much they're considering.
City has a meeting tonight.
On housing?
I don't know, but maybe we can slide it in.
I'm on their calendar for July 8th.
We've got to wrap this up. So the question is, what's your comfort level? We've heard from Patty. I'd love to hear from Steve and Francie and Kelly.
Steve's
Go
going
ahead,
for his
Steve.
hand.
His hand is-
One question would be, have you talked to Newcastle, for instance? I think they would be more likely to participate in this than maybe Parachute or Rifle perhaps would participate in, but have you talked to those towns farther down valley in Garfield County yet?
We haven't approached them with a request for funding yet. They are aware of the programs that we're intending to launch, and I think that that's a great idea, Commissioner, for us to go to them with these commitments in hand and see how willing and how much they could participate with.
That's a great
Yeah.
question.
And I mean, I would love to be able to commit $2 million, knowing how our budget works. I would go along with Patty and try to do 1 million right now, including the ARPA money. I think we could afford that right now. Going into future years, coming up with more, I would hope that we could do that, but that could hinge on, passing a ballot issue or some different things that would be a game changer if we had that more money coming in.
You're recommending $1 million from our housing fund and 719 from ARPA?
Total of $1 million.
No, total, 1 million total.
And as
So
far
it'd
as
be-
showing our intent,
Yeah,
I think that's a
Coming
great
up
idea.
with
Steve's right.
200, more than 200,000 from our,
Okay, I see.
housing fund. Yeah.
Do either of you want
I have a question for Kara before I answer. So when we get these requests for us to do the purchase, they come every few months. Why do they only come every few months?
From our employees.
That's the only ones who need them right now.
Yeah. I think it's just who's looking. We obviously saw a dip as interest rates have gone up, right? And so it seems to just ebb and flow based on what employees are looking for, where they are in life. So there's no rhyme or reason other than the interest rates. And as we've come to you a few different times to expand beyond Pickens County boundaries, to expand down to it's really reflective of where the coalition is looking at this. And as we've made those changes, you've seen more people be able to access it. And then as we change the increases, so it really becomes how is the program adapting with the market to make it something that employees can tap into.
So we don't have a tremendous demand to buy a bunch of houses right now for employees. Okay,
I think
well, that helps.
And just for reference, we regularly budget about 600,000. Maybe we've increased it to 700. So we've always budgeted for like 2 or 3 a year. We carry it forward if we have more, but that's the amount really since the inception of the
I see.
program that we've
And if
budgeted
interest
for.
rates drop, you can anticipate that might pick up.
Yeah.
Can I ask Kara a
Kelly.
question? Do you think it's financially responsible for us to take 1.2 million out of the general fund housing fund to hit the $2 million request, given our Phillips project and its demands? This is where I'm struggling to know what is,
Just a little pressure there.
Yeah.
well, no, I mean, it's because I feel like Phillips, we can rationalize a lot of like, well, we can go get grant money. We've taken all this care and effort to position ourselves for federal dollars towards Phillips related to how we move people, blah, 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 so I'm just not seeing the full recommendation of those two compared,
Right.
And the full
from the
price
same
tag.
bucket.
Yeah. And I think that's what staff is trying to balance too, right? Like things are moving at different speeds. So one option that you have on the table, if you wanted to be probably the most fiscally responsible, is to say, here's the LACTIF, which whatever acronym, go with your 1 million, give this a trial. They're starting to stand it up. We can always come back as the staff as we get more information on the Phillips. So you know what the balance is between the two of the Phillips piece and this, and also let it trial, right? You always have that as an option on the table if you wanted to go that route.
Great answer.
Sure. No, I get that. I'm trying to balance that against, like, how do we also position ourselves for a great philanthropic pitch, right? So, like, coming in at, $1 million, I just have to think that it's less impressive to say to someone, maybe we're going to get 10 homes, so join up with us for this goal of 10 homes as opposed to 30 homes, so that's part of what,
You mean 30 like at Phillips?
well, I'm just looking at this, like if the whole program's goal is $6 million raised, with us coming in at, 33% of that for 30 homes, that's the goal. If we're only going to if we're going to come in at less than that, everybody else comes in at less than that,
Well, then why don't
just,
we?
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's what
possible.
that's just part of what I'm trying to think about when, do we come in strong early and then only give $1 million next year? Or only give $500 next year, like relying on others to have been like, we came in on the seed money to really tee this up so we could leverage philanthropy in a better way. I don't know.
Well,
That's
we
part
can
of what
always-
I'm
Put in
balancing.
initially?
What?
How much did we
haven't
put
put
in
into
initially?
anything.
To the coalition?
When it first was brought to us, like, year and a half
When
ago?
you guys were
Didn't we
gearing up?
commit something at that time?
We put in our $10,000 of membership dues for 2022 and 2023. And
That's
then
it?
that is doubled to $20,000 in 2024 for all the members you saw on the screen at the beginning.
And that's all we've put in so far?
Correct. Well, we've allowed, for the coalition, we've acted as a pass-through agency for grants that Picken County has been able to apply for, but the coalition wasn't able to.
Okay.
Patty,
Well, and the other side of that, Kelly, is so I'm Basalt, who hasn't really budgeted, and they're gonna say, Picken County's putting in $2 million and we're gonna get a free ride here, so why should we put any of our money in?
I don't think they would say that.
Well, but Rifle could, or Newcastle could, and they're benefiting from our $2 million.
well, one way to do it is to say, we're gonna put $1 million in.
See what
I
the rest
could-
of you
I could go
do.
along with that, and then we'll say, we're incentivized if you are. If others are gonna put in, then we would consider increasing based on what other people come up with. That way, we're incentivizing them.
So would we
rather
say,
than
if you
we-
hit 5 million, we'll come in with the last million?
Yeah, if we do a match or
If we have a
something.
good funding source in 2025,
We will.
we will.
I
And
like
I-
the idea of putting in the million. And then,
Bring it
let's
back.
see what happens in the next year. See if you get people in houses and stuff, and then consider adding more.
Yes, we will definitely be back with some accountability and report on the success of the program, any modifications that we intend to make, and more funding requests.
And this is already appropriated in our, it doesn't have to come back to us again, does it?
It has to, since it's ARPA money, it needs to come to you in a grant agreement. It's not a contract.
But the balance, the remainder
The
from the 7 is already
281.
appropriated into housing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
do we, what do you
Kelly
want?
has an answer.
On my question, my proposal?
Your proposal to put it all in it up front and then hope others
Well,
join
no,
us?
my refined proposal after your
Oh,
comments.
oh, which was?
Which is to message. we'll
If
come
we
in
get
with the
5
last
million, Picken County's coming in with the last
You know,
million.
and I don't know how long we can promise
heard that
that.
message.
If that's only, we can only promise that till December 31st of this year because of how our budget
Can I add
works.
to that?
Is that, can April communicate that on behalf when she goes to the foundation?
Thank you, and Patty?
Looking at other funding sources and the success and the benefits of the program.
And Go ahead.
I'm sorry, no, you go.
I was just gonna say, I would tie it, I don't know if I'd wanna guarantee that we're gonna put in another million unless we see, a 200% match from everybody else who's involved, right?
I'm not gonna be that specific. I'm just saying,
I
I wanna
would-
see that the program works,
If we
which I
want to
think it will.
incentivize them, to say, hey, we're incentivized to be involved, we want to incentivize you, we're gonna put this in now, and we'll put in another million, or up to another million if it's matched.
I don't even want to go that far, honestly, because I want to make sure that we have enough money in our housing fund to attract partners so that we can get Phillips done. I don't want to give away our housing fund to another entity until we have guarantees that we can do Phillips.
Okay, so what
That's
sounds
the
like
way I
where we
feel.
are is we're at putting in $1 million now with the possibility of doing more, but we're not, doesn't seem like we have a consensus on that yet. Steve?
Well, I was wondering if, I mean, you talk about a $5 million goal where we would put in another million. Does that 5 million include grants from, you know, charitable organizations or wealthy individuals putting in a chunk of money? Or is that just from the other government entities that people are talking about?
Yes.
Because we could incentivize the grant program givers too.
All the above, Steve. I was
To put
thinking
in more
everyone.
money, and if you put more money in, we'll put more money in, that kind of thing.
I think, Greg, you're right.
All the above.
We don't really care where it comes from, we just want it to come.
That way we know everybody's in. Okay, we have gone over time. Is there anything else you want to say or ask?
Can
or-
I clarify the direction that I'm getting,
Please.
please?
Good idea.
I'm
very clear.
hearing that we'd like to use the remainder of our LATCF ARPA money, which is $719,285. Thank you, that. In addition to whatever more we need from our general fund housing budget to make $1 million of a contribution to the West Mountain Regional Coalition Good Deeds Program.
It's 281,000.
Thank you. And then I would bring
we have
that
you.
back to the board in a first read and then a second read resolution that is a grant agreement that you all would approve.
Yes, I think you can be certain of that.
And then April will make, broad statements about how we're interested in funding more if we can pull in,
And
if
how-
the
look
coalition
what
can
Pickens
fund in
County-
more.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention is that some of the other organizations have also considered the idea of if the home purchase is in their jurisdictional boundaries where they have limits and restrictions on the kinds of funding they can use, but it becomes less restrictive when it's in their jurisdiction, perhaps they can show up and match. And so in the case of $1 million home, instead of us spending $300,000 of the region of the coalition's money, maybe we spend 150 of the
Then they
of the
match.
kitty, and then they show up with the other 150. So for example, if the home is in Pickens County, perhaps there's an opportunity then to come in with additional funding if we can figure out how to make that happen quickly.
Right, great idea, great
Right,
idea.
if Newcastle could do that, or Rifle.
Right.
Also,
Yeah.
the thing is, I guess, I'm really eager to see, what is the bang for the buck at the end, after we have a chance to see if it works and if it's working, maybe this is a much more affordable economic way to get people into housing than building new housing
Yeah.
in other locations.
I'm sorry, Patty, that unincorporated Garfield County, there won't be any match. It's either a municipality in Garfield or there's,
I you
Nothing.
noticed I didn't say.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think is that it? All right.
Yes, this is tremendous. I think as the person who works on housing on you all's behalf, this is an amazing way
What,
for.
you mean we gave you more than you expected?
Well, it's
Okay,
a
wait a
great.
minute,
I'm
we're gonna read-
excited. I'm
Whoa.
excited that
You need to
Pickens
go.
County's showing up this way in the region and really leading. I think it.
Pickens County
is an
always shows up
exciting-
one
We
way or
recognize the
another.
need,
So
we
thank you,
recognize the
Board.
need for this, and we're scared like everyone else.
well, you sold me, because I was definitely doubtful about even 719,000.
I'm going to sell Garfield County too. Just you wait.
You're right.
I wanna be at that meeting, or maybe I don't wanna
You
be
should
at that
wait
meeting.
until
it.
Perry gets in,
If
and
anybody
then
can
go.
do it, you can.
I know Perry.
And I'll call him.
Great, thank you.
he's
Thanks for
gonna get
coming.
elected.
Thanks,
We gotta
everybody.
get him in.
Okay, so, do we
right.
need a break right now?
I
Or do you
could
want
just
to power
grab some
through Lee
water.
Jai's update?
5 minutes?
5-minute
Yeah.
break, 5-minute break.
you.
And we have a team behind, so sorry about that. It was worth it, though.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Seriously.
We don't want to rush into spending $1 million.
I didn't want to rush you all on
The
this
story is I
careful
spilled an
consideration.
entire
You're pretty Okay, we're back with the work session. It is 3:08, and we're a little bit behind schedule. Up next is Levi Borst is here to do the legislative update. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Levi Borst, Management Analyst. I'm just here to provide a quick legislative wrap-up from different measures that we tracked throughout the legislative session. To kind of open the floor for you all to think going forward about interim advocacy or any sort of stakeholding or issues that we want to work on, building coalitions for measures we want to look at for next session, and then of course just to give a wrap-up of the bills we tracked and where they landed as the session ended. So all the bells have been rung, not a ton of discussion, so I'll be as quick as I can to get you back on schedule.
You don't have to be
Great,
as quick
thanks.
as you can.
Hello. I'm the chair today.
I'm just saying, between me and him.
Okay, you can
Not
spend
speaking for
all
you,
the
God
time
forbid.
she wants
Chair
after school. You guys can go spend all the time you want.
So the session just ended, and from my last count, I think it was 785 different pieces that went through. A lot of those are joint resolutions and naming of bridges and memorials and things like that. So they're not all, as they would appear, legislative changes per se. These are just actions that went through.
If we want to rename the Castle Creek Bridge after someone, do we have to have these guys do it?
Well, it's a state highway, so we might have to.
Better get to work on that.
Who'd you have in mind?
I don't know, but it just occurred to me. We can-
I want to hear that one.
I like Castle Creek, the name.
I know, I'm just thinking, who do we name it after to speed things up?
We're moving right along. Oh, it's
That's a
during the
thought.
meeting.
Like, you mean Bill Gates Bridge, that kind of
Or
thing?
Tory
Oh.
Bridge. Okay.
I don't
good.
have any appropriate suggestions, so keep my mouth
I
shut.
would never want a bridge or a road named after me personally.
So the Connecting Renewable Energy, the board heard a presentation from the Colorado Energy Office and Conservation Colorado about this. It was pretty scary at first, a lot of local preemptions for siting of renewable energy, and on the other side of that was pretty much a study bill that had no preemptions, and what we got was the study bill. Changes effectively nothing. Development of model codes, a repository of model codes, and various studies to see what are the roadblocks to why renewable energy isn't being cited, lack of a better word, why isn't it being built to the degree we want? So
The CCI meeting I was at where we talked about this bill, Weld County informed us that they have more renewable energy in Weld County than anywhere else in the state. And they don't need the state telling them where to put it. But it was interesting to
Weld
hear
County?
that Weld County has more than anywhere else. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if it's true, but it's what he
A
said.
lot of those eastern and northern windy counties
They
have
got
it.
wind and they got methane
Yep.
from cows.
Weld has plenty of wind, that's for sure.
Can I ask a question? Is it preemption or preemption?
it's
Emption, there's an
emption,
M.
that's a typo.
There's
Thank
an
No,
you.
no, I was wondering
no,
if
no,
I've
no,
been,
I'll correct it before I share it, I'm sorry.
no, I just thought that
typo.
was interesting.
Preemption,
But
that's a
during your thir-
preemption.
I know.
Preemption.
Thank you for this. It's a step in the right direction,
thought
but
it
it's a
was me.
baby step. Okay.
Agreed. And we'll know more about the reasons why we're not building renewable energy generation facilities. Hopefully we get results from the study.
Okay,
Yay for studies.
Love study bills.
everything's a steady bill these days, isn't it?
Oh, jeez. Sorry, there's a little delay.
You have to push it and wait. Yeah. there you go.
Right. Aviation impacts on communities. We tracked this hoping to get some amendments in, and I don't think we quite got ahead of that in time. So this could be an interim opportunity if we have things we'd like to add, things we'd like to advocate for. Hopefully we can get them in ahead of when the rubber hits the road. So this offered a few tax credits for the incentivization of non-leaded fuel and noise monitoring software to reduce the impacts of airports on the surrounding communities. I know Kelly was interested in this, and as we go forward, we can try to get some amendments added.
No air quality monitoring?
I think the lead raining down on the communities was the air quality or
That
the
was
health
lead,
quality they
yeah.
were worried about.
But that's all from small aircraft.
So
I didn't know there was leaded fuel.
that's what I was
still.
going to ask. Do
Old
we
style
use leaded
little
fuel
Cessnas.
at our
All sorts of things.
airport? Do you know?
There's probably some, I don't know.
Just the local small aircraft,
little
maybe.
Cessnas?
Yeah.
Just like you can still buy it for 2 strokes. So.
Right.
We did get some, I guess assurance probably isn't the right word, but assurance for no better word, from the sponsors that they think like sustainable aviation fuel could be
Added to this.
well, could qualify for the tax credit.
So,
Because it's technically a non-leaded fuel.
Right.
I remember Brown's office saying that that this measure didn't exclude
Right.
sustainable aviation fuel, even though it wasn't specifically listed. Mobile homes in mobile home parks. This was essentially protections and requirements, additions to the Mobile Home Park Act. So I didn't get any feedback from our housing director or the attorney's office, other than these are just more things to be aware of as we administer our mobile home park going forward. So it's things, everything from unique mailing addresses in mobile home parks to who maintains the roadways and things like that.
So
So
this is different than the water quality in mobile homes park that we saw last year.
correct.
That was just one issue. And one of my concerns about these statutes that come through is if you pull up the state statutes related to mobile home parks, it's like thousands of pages.
Right.
It's
Really?
huge.
This adds a lot to an already big.
It's very
act.
burdensome.
okay.
Fill and dredge, this was a great success I thought we had. As we talked about, Sackett and EPA kind of gutted the Clean Water Act, and there were 2 competing bills, and this was definitely the one that we preferred the most. So I know Greg
got it.
testified in
Okay,
committee,
Thanks for doing that.
and we sent letters to both the House and the Senate committee and really made our positions known along with a lot of other people, and we got our way. So I think this was a great success. Thanks, Greg.
Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for participating. Didn't you help on this one? Anyway, whoever helped. Thank
Well, I
you
voted
all.
for it.
Thank you.
The competing act died in appropriations, so I don't need to waste any time there.
Yeah.
Where's,
I'm not smarter than what I'm working with right now.
oh,
Alcohol Impact and Recovery Enterprise. This was an interesting concept to basically put, impact user fees on the sale of alcohol to fund substance use disorder prevention, intervention, treatment, all those things. This died in the House Finance Committee. As I remember, the fiscal note was huge on this. It was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So I think it's a neat idea. I mean, I think users of that could easily fund the treatment of it or prevention of it. So, 120 million. And maybe, Greg, you heard something through the public health world about this. I didn't hear a lot of contentious debate one way or the other.
Yeah, it sounds really intriguing, but if they didn't know where they're going to spend the money,
yeah, that's a big question mark.
that would kill it even for a supporter, I assume.
So that may be something we see
I
again.
think there was some concern with it too, being like having competing purpose for what marijuana tax dollars get spent on, and cigarette tax dollars get spent on as well. Anyway.
It
I
wasn't
wouldn't be
clear.
surprised if we saw a new version of that at some point. I think it's a good concept. Oh, so let's see. Support surface transportation infrastructure development. This was the impact user fee on rental cars. Again, the big question mark is how are those funds used? And as written and signed, it's $2 per short-term car rental day for an EV and $3 per short-term car rental day for gas. Whatever it's worth, from ComDev, that equals about $515,000 based on last year's rental car totals out of our airport. And so if that's to be used in close proximity to where the fees were collected, $515,000 at CDOT's discretion of how they spend that.
Somewhere in, ideally, that would be Highway 82.
I was going
Ideally.
to say, multimodal, there's your bridge, Kelly. Well, a fraction of it.
So how the
Annual
CTIO spends
bonding.
that money is anybody's guess, but
Right. Great. Well, he signed it.
The bridge we're not naming after you, Kelly, we're gonna call it the London
We're gonna
Bridge
put a
as in
bust of her
falling
on it.
down.
Okay.
Protections, mineral interest owners forced pooling. This was a Boulder County bill, as I remember, and it's kind of a neat thing where government-owned property can opt out of forced mineral pooling on lands they own. So I think that's kind of a win. There's an info sheet connected. I think we talked about that one into the ground in our last meeting. 213 from last year. Strategic growth has been sent to the governor and not signed as of today. The housing needs assessment, master plan updates with water and strategic growth, grant prioritization for compliance with the terms in that bill. We'll get a lot more details to follow in how the tiers of compliance are evaluated by, I think it's DOLA that will decide that. So
So you mean there's grants available if you are, if you, looks like you need more housing and you're complying with their requirements, or?
the way I understand it is they'll take the housing needs assessment, the master plan updates, and give you a score, lack of a better term, from like 1 to 5. And
On
if,
what you've already accomplished
on-
or what you need?
on how compliant you are with these.
Okay.
And the more compliant you are, the more available those grant dollars are for you.
Okay.
Strategic growth, this was the climate action plan into the master comp plan, but it died, so we don't need to worry about that. The ADU bill signed by the governor. This was the MPOs and municipalities greater than 1,000, so it's NA to us. The second ADU bill, the ADU bill for everyone, died in committee, so we're not worried about that. And the transit-oriented communities bill was signed by the governor, but that's also just MPOs. I think an important amendment that came up in the CCAT meeting was that the highway user transportation fee funding as a stick for compliance was amended out. So not that it applies to us, but we didn't really like the precedent of using those funds to kind of strong arm compliance. Construction defects debate. All of these died one way or the other, so we don't need to spend a ton of time on them. There was the consumer-friendly bill, the builder-friendly bill, and the study bill, and they all died for one reason or another. And that's the last one. Air quality. So there was the grand bargain.
What is that?
It's in 2 slides from now. We'll explain it as best I
I
can.
don't think I've heard of that.
I guess I can skip kind of the air quality improvements, enforcement, and ozone levels. Those 3 were part of a debate that engaged the environmental groups, oil and gas groups, and the governor's office. And the idea would be to kill those 3 bills, and this is the agreement: a 3-year armistice on new legislation regarding ozone drilling and pre-production. So my understanding is that for the next 3 years, we have agreed to not introduce new legislation or referred measures regulating production, pre-production, and emissions.
And what do we get?
We get Senate Bill 24-229, which is aimed to reduce the ozone and ozone precursors to 50% of the 2017 levels by the year 2030. Modeling rulemaking, how we're actually going to get there is a question mark, of course. And then a production fee on oil and gas in Senate Bill 230. The fiscal note estimates $138 million a year, which goes to transit projects and public lands.
So I just have a question about the first one. If we're putting it off for 3 years, we're at 2027, so that only leaves us 3 years then to reduce by 50%?
And there's no guarantee
With
they'll
no
get anywhere
plan.
near that goal.
No, I think the goal is they can start working on that now, and we just won't introduce further legislation in the next 3 years to amend this. Admittedly, it all happened so quickly and is about a mile over my head.
My guess
but-
is they're gonna blow right by that deadline.
So the production fee on oil and gas is part of the big bargain?
Yep. The grand bargain were these three things: the 3-year truce, the ozone and precursor reduction, and then the production fee.
Sounds like a buy-off.
So there's no minimum though, so it's a $138 million estimate, so if it's $20.50, that's what we get?
I suppose so.
Yeah,
I
That means
don't know
oil
what
and gas
assurances
didn't
there
produce a
are.
whole lot.
Either that or they're not reporting what they were produced.
Yeah, I don't know if there are a bunch of tax write-off exemptions for that, or
Yeah,
how that,
interesting.
what the accountability measure is on either side. It's hard to know what happens when this governor leaves office, and a lot of these current legislators are no longer in office, how the accountability works on both the oil and gas side and the governor's side.
Oh, yeah.
CC4CA seemed to think that given the circumstances and the chances those other 3 air quality bills had of passing, that this was an excellent deal.
They thought it was a good deal.
Yep.
How come I don't remember that? Maybe I wasn't here for that.
This was a
Remind
last.
you it's a grand bargain.
This was a last-second thing that
Okay.
just kind of came
I
together.
remember the last one that you skipped over because I was the only pro vote in CCI on it.
The air quality enforcement.
Yeah,
those?
well, yeah, I think it was that one. I can't remember which one it was, but out of all the people that were at that meeting, I was the only pro vote. Which was, I was like,
Good for you.
what am I missing here?
Maybe we were the only. Were you the only vote outside of the attainment area?
Well, it was during that big storm, so hardly anybody showed up, and there weren't that many people at the meeting, even online.
All right. The STR tax classification change. This died in Senate Finance. I'm sure that we'll see some other version of this as we go through the interim. I hope CCAT is going to talk more about this. And Kelly can probably talk more. She volunteered for the interim committee.
Yeah, I think, there's a couple of different ways that this conversation transitions. There's a broader group that's going to be contemplating different, revenue generation tools for counties. So STR classification would be among that. And then you'll probably come up with the other STR bill later, but we'll revisit that one too.
Did you mean the primary, secondary residence?
The one in the backcountry, the cabin for
Well,
backcountry
yep.
cabins.
That one is definitely coming up. The tax rebate for digital assets died in business, labor, and technology. And I think this is good.
I was looking at bacon, lettuce, and tomato.
There wasn't enough room without screwing up
Can
the
I just
spacing.
go back? Sorry, can I just go back to this STR one really quick? The STR lobby is strong
Oh, yeah.
at the legislature now. It's stronger than it was just a few years ago when we got licensing authority. This bill was an interim committee recommendation bill, and it still died, which I think is fairly unusual, and just points to the contentiousness of this. Senator Hansen, I think, was very open to amendments, and nonetheless, I don't think he was very savvy, but I think that, we were just outmaneuvered. There are quite a lot of commissioners who are fierce advocates on STRs that are running for re-election this year. And they are getting bombed.
They're getting what?
Bombed by this issue. So I just would keep all of that context in mind as we think about kind of STR regulation and the role it plays in communities. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Digital assets was a tax rebate for high-use data centers, and they were high users of water and power, so we're glad that died. Let's see, wildfire mitigation. This also died in Senate committee. I don't know if we see something similar to this after we get some recommendations back from wildfire boards. Overall, I don't think it's a terrible concept, so might not be a bad thing to see some version of this resurface.
Yeah, a lot of other counties I was really surprised did not support this. They felt like it was too burdensome for their code enforcement staffing.
But a wildfire that took out all those houses was not burdensome.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it.
I mean, who you would expect would be friendly counties were not supportive of this. So, I don't know if it'll come back, but anyway, thanks, Levi.
We'll see. Public meetings, equal access to public meetings, and thankfully this died on the calendar. This would have just required public notice requirements for a lot of our citizen boards and kind of set those to the same standard as meeting requirements for this board, because any discussion where recommendations to the governing body may be discussed is a pretty broad brushstroke, so that could mean a lot of things. It died, so we're happy about that. Grace period for digital accessibility. This was a measure in 2021, and we just got another year for compliance, so that's not anything to worry about immediately, and we've got IT and everybody else working on this as we speak. This was, Kelly, what you mentioned, the curse number 213. Exempt certain structures from county regulation. And this, I was pleased to see how much just almost violent opposition there was to this from everybody that I heard. This died in House committee, and we were heavily engaged in opposition. I think we moved pretty quickly on this to send letters of disgust out. And this would have there, it's spelled correctly there, isn't it? Preempt certain properties from county STR regulations, recreational properties who are not serviced by public utilities. So obviously it had huge impacts for our rural and remote
That was
zoning
kind of
regulations.
remarkable because the sponsors were people generally that we're pretty aligned with. I really admire them for what they do, but this just seemed to be too hasty and not well thought out.
Pretty poorly conceived, yeah.
Yeah,
I
poorly
had
conceived.
Quite a bit of communication with Perry on that day. He voted no on it. But he also thought that we would be exempt from some of it, just because of our
Based on our
regulations about rural and
life
remote.
safety issue.
What?
Because of our life safety.
Yes, it's because of life safety
Code
and
of
stuff.
pride, yeah.
He didn't
yeah.
think it would be, he thought we'd be okay, but he still voted no on it.
I didn't think so. I would say maybe Greg, I would look to you, given your personal relationship with Judy Amabile, that perhaps a conversation over the summer, which I'd be more than happy to also
Sure.
organize, or if she's kind of come up for a visit, you
Yeah,
know, take
yeah,
her on a
we
little
can invite her to
tour.
come over, right.
Would be great, because she did sort
they
of
gonna-
say in her
Doesn't she still have
comments.
family up here?
Are they gonna bring it back? I don't think so.
She did say in her comments that she was going to do more stakeholding and bring it back.
Yeah.
If we can convince her otherwise, that would be great.
And I do recall, I think this is one that we should work with the attorney's office if there is still a zoning action that needs to be moving forward or not.
Thank you.
I have a bill though. Can I bring up a bill?
Yes,
What,
please.
you're gonna introduce a bill?
No. I think it passed, and I believe the governor signed it about hands-free driving.
So that was it was an extension of the existing law. The current law about hands-free driving applied to minors under the age of 18, and this one just made those same regulations apply to everyone.
And when does it take effect?
What are the regulations?
As I remember, it's like no manual data entry into an electronic device, save for a hands-free while the vehicle's in motion. And so it has to cause
By the
observable,
driver.
careless, by the driver. It has to cause observable, careless driving behavior for the officer to initiate the stop, and then you write the citation under careless driving.
So he takes your phone and sees whether you did any texting or anything while you were driving.
It's pretty hard to prove. I mean, unless you see somebody with their phone up in the car swerving over the road, it's gonna be tough.
And you have a picture of it. But
And they take your phone and look at your texting?
Not.
I don't.
Without a warrant.
No, without a warrant, yeah. But my concern is, I think we need to, when does it take effect? January 1, or does it take effect immediately?
Maybe July 1st
Ben?
if you signed it.
Steve, go ahead.
I think it was January 1, 2025.
I'd like
That's what I
to,
had heard.
I'd like to flag it so we can do some kind of PSA,
You bet.
so that our public knows that this is changing, and it's not just your 16-year-old driving the car, it's your 76-year-old driving the car. What?
I thought that was a rule anyway, but
Yeah.
like
about
distracting.
California it
driving
is.
or- Yeah.
So all the, I guess I would, as a brief departure, all the bills that were kind of sheriff's office related have been compiled and sent to them, and then the same thing with some of our IT people, and I just tried to send things out as appropriate to department heads. So if we're going to run some kind of a public service, we can do it as part of whatever consolidated effort.
I'm gonna say that the big screen in my car is more distracting than my device. I have almost driven off the road several times trying to hit buttons on my screen. It's really distracting.
Clunky.
Because you're watching Sex in
I
the
had to
City
take my
while you're
scarves
driving down the
other night
highway.
and drape them over it because there was so much light coming out of my thing. I didn't know how to turn that down.
They
you
do
know how
have
to turn that down?
they have a
Turn it
dimmer.
down, but it's-
It was,
yeah.
I have to get my book out, but it was just so bright in my face and it was pouring rain outside. And I was like, I can't see anything. So I took my scarves off and tied up my little screen.
Yeah, I don't know how that's different.
I don't know how it's different either.
Maybe if you're punching
And
data
it's actually
into that,
further away than your phone is, you know? Like, it's really dangerous.
For me being so short, I can't see over those screens anyway, so.
So in the interim, all the summer retreats are happening. Oh, sorry, Steve, did I just interrupt you?
Well, I wanted to make a comment earlier and I couldn't find my mute about the construction defects bill. In going around different places in the Denver area, they are building so many apartment buildings, all for rent. They didn't quit building stuff, they just quit building condominiums for sale. So that's why the construction defects thing maybe doesn't have an effect on the builders, but it does change the mix on what people can buy and what they have available to rent. And that could affect us here sometime.
I think I'd heard some builders were building multifamily units and then renting them basically through the period where that applied, and then they would sell them after the statute had expired, 6 years or whatever it was.
I was sent a report that's pretty recent that analyzed like the landscape of construction defects and its impacts in Colorado. If anyone's interested.
For sure. So most of the summer retreats are starting now that we're in the interim. I think CCI is happening this week. That's where John is. CCAT, CC4CA, CAST. The CAST Housing Committee, we're all talking about the same things of how to fund housing. So the RET fee discussion continues, use tax, vacancy tax, pillow tax, all these things are kind of circling, and we'll see if any of them go anywhere. The CCAT interim fiscal tax policy, I think I heard Kelly throw her name in the ring for that the other day.
Are you gonna go to CAST with me in August? To
Yes.
Durango?
Durango, absolutely.
That'd be fun. And then October, it's Jackson.
That sounds nice also. So then just a few committees that are
Right
happening
before
here
the
and there in the
election.
interim. And then any other areas that are of interest that we can stakeholder, coalition build, or organize around, just let me know. Questions? Anything that's of interest that is not in this list? There are so many, it's kind of hard to pick, but these are ones we watched throughout the
Levi, it
session.
is so immensely helpful to have you doing this.
It really is.
Yeah.
you.
It's really, really great.
Yeah.
It's
And
oddly
responsive.
fun.
It's abreast.
And thank you for the article on cats versus lions.
You bet.
I did
So-
want to ask, we had some prior conversation about whether we wanted to invite CCAT to come present their legislative update. Does that seem
I
meaningful?
thought we
or-
said yeah, because we
I just
haven't had
wanted
a,
to- Okay, I just wanted to
yeah.
coordinate that with Levi's schedule.
Not to steal their thunder, but I'll share, of course, this
Oh,
with you
thanks.
again.
Yeah.
And these are kind of the written recaps. So there's the rumor mill that we had going the whole session. There's a Pitkin recap of things that we talked about in addition to this slideshow. And then CAST CC4CA and CCAT. I just haven't seen the CCI recap of their bills they advocated for or against yet, but I'll add that link to this as soon as I get it. So in your spare time, you can click on these and kind of see position bills and how they wrapped up. I think overall we did really well, and compared to last year, this session was pretty G-rated, I think. So in terms of how it could have gone, I think it went pretty well.
A lot.
All right.
Good job.
6 minutes ahead of schedule, Greg.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well done. Worth it, every minute of it.
Thank you.
It's really great.
Okay, upcoming regular
Oh,
meeting items.
sorry, which retreats are you attending?
I will go to CC4CA, CCAT, and CAST.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna go
CCI, I
CAT.
think
I'm gonna go to CCAT, but I'm not going to any of the others.
I've got the placeholder for that reserved.
Okay.
CCI is the only one I'm missing. It's this week.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
All right, upcoming regular meeting items, review of the amendment to the collection agreement for the Forest Service. And guess who's here? Our Healthy Rivers gang is here.
Thanks.
Come on down, people. We are
You say
gonna keep on trucking.
you forgot them. Oh,
Forgot what? Did
Well-
they bring a beaver?
I happened to get the first one, but I gotta take my hair out of my clip. If I can. My granddaughter got me these clips and they do nothing but snarl.
They're so cute.
So,
Sit right here.
excuse me. You guys will get them, right?
Hair clips?
Yes, you need one desperately. No.
Okay.
Can I wear this?
Wow, looks cool.
It's our official swag. Looks good, Patty, actually.
I love
Yeah, I like it.
Ready to play ball.
I'm ready. Bring it on. I'm ready to go out there and count those beavers and dams and trees and fauna and flora. In my mucking boots and my waders.
Okay, all
Actually,
right.
this is nice. It cuts off the.
So, collection agreement, expansion of it to include beavers, or no, Lincoln Creek.
Yep.
How cool is that?
Yes.
Is Lisa coming back, or did she just chaperone you?
She'll be
all?
right back.
She'll be right back. She will be right back. Yes.
Bearing gifts.
Well, let's get going
Yes,
either
we're very
way.
excited to be here today. And I have Cole Greensmith with me. And we have pulled him away from official newborn baby duty, actually.
Oh, well done.
1 month.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. You don't look underslept.
Thank you.
But if you doze off, we'll just
Caffeinated.
nudge you.
Yeah, you can just punch me a little bit. and that'll
Yeah,
help for
give
sure.
we'll nudge him a little bit. Yeah, Lisa Tasker here with the Picken County Healthy Rivers Program, along with Lisa McDonald, Picken County Healthy Rivers Program. And we're here to talk about beavers and a little bit about Lincoln Creek, which is not quite as upbeat, but that's okay. Yeah, so if you guys will recall, in February 2023, you entered into a formal resolution authorizing yourselves to enter into a collection agreement with the Forest Service, White River National Forest of Aspen-Sopris Ranger District, so that they could go ahead and investigate and implement actions to promote beavers in the headwater streams in the Roaring Fork watershed. And then again, on April 2nd, you had a visitation by Clay Ramey, and he gave you an update of what happened last summer during the field season for 2023. It was pretty exciting, very interesting, a lot of new information and sort of this understanding that really only about 8% of the sites that they had gone to had beavers utilizing them. So that was a fairly interesting statistic to learn. And there's a lot more to that story, which you all were here to listen to. And then, so in the interim, he was to come back and give you a bit of an update on what his plans were for this summer for the White River National Forest. And in that interim, he also connected with Cole And Cole and Clay and myself have been a part of the Lincoln Creek Work Group, which you heard quite a bit about last week. And in understanding what the Forest Service was going to be able to do for some of their data collection this summer, it turned out that they could use some help with some specific funding for some, I'm going to let Cole go ahead and tell you a little bit more about that, but for looking at both water flows and some sediment and sort of helping with the rest of the larger group's efforts, working with them to understand, some of the missing pieces, and they're trying to fill in some of that. So I'll let Cole go into telling you a little bit about what his plans are.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys got briefed, I guess, last week or whatnot from Kurt and Lisa about the entire situation up there. And ultimately, this additional funding would allow us to take flow measurements at 2 locations that previously don't have any flow data. And that will, combined with the other data, will help us see how much metal is actually getting loaded into Grizzly Reservoir, and also how much that is making it into the Roaring Fork, the Upper Roaring Fork. So that's the flow aspect of it for the data accumulation. And in terms of the sediment sampling, those samples cost approximately $500 a piece. And depending on the situation, whether or not some of those will be taken within the reservoir boundaries themselves, that can show historically how much of that sediment is contaminated and what that means for flows that get released from the reservoir and into the Upper Roaring Fork. And then some of that could also be, those samples could also be from the Upper Lincoln and show some of those depositional areas and just make inferences about loading of metals in those areas too. So that's ultimately our piece of helping.
Right, thank you. Is that what you initially planned? Is this you're asking for what you want?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of is this going to be what it takes to figure out what's happening up there?
This is one piece of it.
It's one. Yeah,
so
it's an initial
CPW
piece.
and RFC and some other groups are also going to be sampling also macroinvertebrates. There will also be several areas that will be sampled from just like surface water grab sampling, and possibly some other fish sampling as well through CPW. So
Right. So it's great. They're all doing that as well.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I also, maybe if you don't mind, Cole, explain. Cole is the forest hydrologist, relatively new, I mean,
Yes.
in the last year or so?
yes, it'll be about a year. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, so very exciting, and Cole actually grew up in the Roaring Fork Valley, I was
Yeah.
told.
So yeah, born and raised here, and so
Yep,
definitely
yep.
feel lucky to work on
What's
a
your
project.
last name again?
Greensmith.
Okay, great.
So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so
Glad to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Been a big circle.
we've all done a few of those. Yeah, because I think it's interesting that doing some of the work that he's doing is going to help connect flow data, so CFS data, to gauge heights, which I don't know if you guys read that in here, but to me that's very interesting and very important and just going to be helpful overall.
Right.
Right.
To know how much water there is, and then co-located with sampling and electrical conductivity gives you a better picture of exactly how much contamination is in the water and how many contaminants there are too. So.
Got it.
The bigger question for me is this year is not our norm year.
Nope.
So we're going to have flow data that's not what our normal flow data is. We're going to have water quality that's not what our normal water quality is.
Right.
Above the reservoir.
The locations, yeah.
Okay, so that's key.
Mm-hmm. So
This
one will
is
be
between
above.
Grizzly and up.
Some of it.
So one of the flow locations is at the inlet, so that measures the loading that's going into the reservoir there, and that can be, worked with as well with the sediment sampling that is hopefully done within the reservoir too.
I'm hoping when they're at the bottom, they get some of the
That's
bottom.
that's kind of our goal right now.
The inlet to Grizzly.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, my concern is because we're going to be diverting most of the water through the tunnel to Twin Lakes, and we're going to have some diversion of water down Lincoln Creek, but
And then New
it's not
York
our
and
normal
stuff.
flow.
Yeah,
So
it'll
where's
be
the other
different.
below the reservoir?
So the other one is going to be, and again, this is definitely a long-term thing, so we got to start somewhere. But the other one is going to be at the confluence, or right above the confluence on Lincoln.
Of the Roaring Fork.
Right. Yeah. So.
We're still gonna have different flow data
That
there.
will be different flow data. I mean, New York will be going through there, et cetera. However, it's something. And so you can kind of just start to get a picture
And
going.
the concern for me too is the water that's coming out of the reservoir may have more contaminants because it's not as dilute and it's becoming from more towards the dregs at the bottom. I went to the meeting the other day, so that's why.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely correct.
So I think we need to make sure we note that. I'd rather we know where we're gonna monitor, not this year, but next year, and do the monitoring above this year, because I know we need a baseline, but this is not even gonna really give us a baseline.
Well, it won't be a baseline, but with this, you can do dilution calculations and you can start to look at that and how that changes electrical conductivity based on flow from other areas. And so that's stuff that can be approximated. But the thing is we want to have these sampling locations and flow measurement locations consistent as possible so that we can get a multi-year data set going that shows.
Well, I totally agree with
it's
that. I
loading,
just
yeah.
am not sure I agree with starting at this year below the
So
reservoir.
next year could be different too, right?
Well, no, but this one is man-made difference,
Yeah.
not just Mother Nature difference.
Well, and in October, yeah, I mean, they're gonna be done with construction supposedly, but yes, I hear
have
you,
the
Patty.
construction schedule right here.
Yep,
Kind of.
yep, very, that's what happens when,
Keeping track.
that's what happens when you come to the meeting.
I know. Now I gotta figure out how to not have to read all the captions. I couldn't get volume, so I had to read really fast.
I
So,
can't, yeah,
Made me
anyway,
dizzy,
good old
but-
Google.
yeah.
Yeah, so basically, that is, we already have the $50,000 in our budget this year. It's a line item to continue the work with the Forest Service for the beavers, and Clay has they have very nicely put in a summary in the modification to their collection agreement and sent it to us, describing sort of specifically what the $50,000 is going to be going towards. And a lot of it's going to be going towards looking at Thompson Creek and 4 Mile, because those are two potential sites for doing some of this low-tech process-based restoration. The PBR you'll hear, and you'll see like the old PBR beer logos when people are talking about, PBR now. I think that was a Joe Wheaton of Utah State University's idea. But anyway, so
Is 4 Mile in Pickett? Upper 4 Mile?
no, but it's in the Roaring Fork watershed.
Okay.
But he does want to investigate that. Clay could not be here today. He says he's very sorry to not be able to be here, but he has 2 interns. They are on board, and you can kind of help fill me in but they are on board. That will be working towards some of this summer. The Forest Service also has some potential other funders that are helping with some of this planning up there in 4 Mile and Thompson Creek. So a lot of this is to be determined, but very focused on trying to get something going. And there are even other folks that I've seen at the local pub in Carbondale that work for the Forest Service who have said, are you part of that, the project that we're really excited about as far as beavers are concerned on the forest? And I said, yeah, we're hoping we're funding that. We're part of the funding mechanism for that. So there's a lot of people that are interested in this. We also have this summer, we have an intern that is going to be moving back to the Roaring Fork from Yale University, actually, but he grew up in the Roaring Fork. So another person who grew up in the Roaring Fork who's circling back for the summer at least. Yes, and he's working with the National Forest Foundation, which is really a Walton-funded group. They have quite amazing resources, and they're interacting with the forest as well, looking to do maybe even a wet meadow project up on the Frying Pan that is not necessarily connected to process-based restoration or sort of a beaver mimicry type thing. But so there are other people and other discussions that are going on, but Alex is this intern who will be actually creating a survey this summer related to trying to go out to the public and asking them about beavers. So stay tuned on that. We're hoping the Healthy Rivers program is hoping to have quite a bit of input on that, as well as the Forest Service. Clay's going to be meeting with him and myself and Clay very, very soon. So there's a number of things going on which are very exciting. And so that's what the $50,000 item is for this year. And then the extra $10,000 would go toward this complementary work on Lincoln Creek with the rest of the Lincoln Creek participants and partners that, Cole is really instrumental in making happen. So that's kind of what's happening. And then the other thing is we did notice in our in the resolution that we did not have the 2027 date in there. So we are also looking to amend the resolution so that it reflects the collection agreement, which allows us to continue to do this kind of a partnership every year with the Forest Service until 2027. So just kind of aligning that. That's kind of a little technical detail, right, Lisa? Yep. Okay.
Oh, can you explain that to me? So we just are now approving spending more money till 2027. Wonder if it still will come back to us for some kind of input from us?
Yes.
I would like that a lot.
Yep. Lisa,
Right, it'll come through the budget process every year, but in order to kind of be aligned with the Forest Service's collection agreement, we'll extend it to 2027, provided funding is always available each year.
Okay, because we may want to change things up, or we may not, or we may want to increase.
Yeah, depending on if we really get some fairly large projects going up, on Thompson Creek, for example. Yeah, I could see there being a real benefit to putting in more money to making those happen. Because right now Clay's kind of talking about the planning process more than anything else on some level. But yeah, I can see that being, I think a really important thing to have, not just money coming to the forest from outside of the watershed and people who aren't really, investigated in a sense of place here. I'm way more interested in seeing people who are living here and kids and whoever else, getting involved with some of these projects, and so they can understand what it takes to do these projects and the meaning of these projects and then the benefits of them eventually. Instead of going for grants that are entirely outside of the watershed, I feel like the funding from within makes a lot of sense to me. So anyway, just to pass that along.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Other questions? Any more? I just wanted to say, I every time I think about anything like this, I think, well, I love that you're going into these other watersheds, but they don't seem to have the same grave situation Lincoln Creek and the Upper Roaring Fork do. And so I always think, well, I want to keep our powder dry. I want to make sure that we do these other things and we have all these other great projects, but this to me seems like almost an emergency. And I know we have a lot of people working on it, and I'm very grateful for that, but I think that's certainly where my focus is. I also wanted to say, I've been reading this book.
All right, yay.
Where is it? It's called Eager, and it's about beavers. I don't know why it's out of focus. I have to hold it back here next to my face, but it keeps going out of focus. This is a fantastic book. It's Eager, The Surprising Secret Life of Beavers and Why They Matter. I just thought, I'm not going to, this won't, why would I read that? I am so completely sucked into this book.
He's been reading it during meetings, and we've had to tell him about this book.
I've been reading it all day. It's really natural history of the United States and how beavers had affected the entire United States landmass. And there's so much to this, it makes you really appreciate what they may represent in terms of helping us restore a lot of land. And so I can't recommend it highly enough. It's by Ben Goldfarb, who also wrote Crossings, and we've been distributed copies of that book as well, about wildlife crossings.
Such a good book.
So that's my pitch for Eager.
Yay.
There it is.
Can I make a comment to that? Because it's very interesting. So he's really created a movement in some respects with this book, which is really remarkable. And I hope he does with Crossings too, by the way. But
what did he do with the?
I think he's kind of created a bit of a movement. He's really, Just briefly, I went to a River Network National Conference in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I stayed with my mother in the last couple of weeks. And her book club just so happened to read Eager. So I was pulled into the book club so that I had to come to the book club and tell
That
them
would have
all
been
about
an
beavers.
experience in
That's
itself.
great. That's amazing. Book clubs are picking it. It's that good. The
Yeah.
literary quality is high enough that you could
Yeah.
imagine a book club
Right.
picking
What's
it
the
up.
other
So.
book too? What's the other, we're trying to get?
Oh, Beaverland.
Beaverland,
Yes. There's another woman who's subsequently written another book, and she's very active too. Have you? Anyway, she's Lila Phillips or something. But we are planning. We haven't done it. We're trying to juggle when these things make sense. But actually have the library already on board to allow us to bring her in and have some kind of like a.
Maybe with Ben also, bring him back.
Yeah,
He
we
lives in
could bring-
Salida, that's easy.
Yeah, he moved to Salida and
The passive are open.
Yeah,
The pass
right,
opens.
right.
Right.
So anyway, so yes, there's
Thank you for that.
thank you
That's
for bringing that up. It's funny.
Send the ladies hats.
This is the commissioner's
know.
the commissioner's book club suggestion of the week. To
Are
thank
you flying with EcoFlight to look at the possible crossings?
I'd
on
like to,
June
but no
6th?
plans yet. No, they didn't get back to me, but yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anything else? You just need direct staff to do what you've asked us to tell you to do. Have we,
Do
are
we
we
need to
doing this?
enter into an amendment at all? Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna bring it back, yeah.
Thumbs up, thumbs up.
I'm
from-
good.
Everybody seems good. Steve's good.
All good.
Thank you. This is
Thanks.
always good stuff.
Yeah, thanks.
Keep us in the loop.
So did you grow
You've
up
got
up here?
hats.
Did you grow up Valley?
Missouri Heights, and then, but I went to school at Basalt and at Aspen.
Excellent.
What are the hats for?
And you're younger than my
Beaver
son.
hats.
Beaver events and things like
Well, hell yeah.
I know Tracy though. I was like a couple years younger than Tracy.
Tracy,
Yeah.
Trevor's a little bit older.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
I'll take a brown one.
Brown,
Yeah,
definitely
we have
brown.
pink too. We have,
you
we-
do?
Yeah, we have a pink
Oh.
one if you guys.
Well, then I want to.
Oh, I don't know. I might need a
there's several.
pink.
You have a pink one.
You're
too?
gonna have to have a pink.
I gotta have a pink one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's my
Thank you.
favorite.
No, I'll wait. I'll
Save
get
me
a
a
pink
pink
one.
one.
You want to?
I like the green ones, but I think I need a pink one. I left the label on.
I'll go for blue.
All right.
Do I get one?
I like the brown ones. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you can have a brown one. We'll get you set up.
That's a good, I'm going for
Pass
one.
these around. Okay.
All right, thank you.
I'll take
I'm gonna
blue.
go for
Thank
pink, but
you.
you have the green one back.
Since I don't see pink
I'm
there.
gonna go for the pink. You didn't give me a choice.
Pink count, I don't.
We don't have them yet. They're
Great,
they're at
yeah,
the
thanks.
they're in
Special order.
basalt, sitting there. We gotta get them.
I'll wait.
Okay.
Very cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Thank you, guys, as always.
Up the good work.
Thanks.
Oh, by the way, I know where you can get some beavers. Just call me afterwards. People calling me, telling me they have sources of beavers they'd love to unload on us.
I know, we wish.
We can't take them, can we?
Not yet. Not yet. No, we're not there yet.
Not there yet. Don't.
Tell them to live with the beavers.
Do not
Figure out how to
send,
live with
yeah,
them.
just live with your beavers. We're not ready to take them yet.
It's kind of like living with wolves.
Exactly, yeah. Those
And
teeth,
wolverines.
those giant orange teeth. It's kind of scary, like wolves. Okay, Charlotte's here. Do we have Jack online yet? Maybe he's here.
Oh, I know where it is.
Told him to be ready around 4 in case you're
Oh,
running.
so, well, boy, it's 4, so we're on time. We're actually on time. Not here yet, but thanks, Charlotte. Want to tee it up?
I don't really need to discuss.
You're just ready to say yes?
His financial background and his conversation with us about the AAB was just, how do you not put him somewhere?
Yeah. He was pretty cool.
And yeah, thank
And is
you
this for an alternate position, or they don't, do they have an alternate position, or is
Yeah,
it
I've
just
been
being on the board?
one regular and one alternate. And you all encouraged Jack to be involved in any way he could. And so he graciously
There he
filled
is.
out another
There he is.
application. And yeah, he's going to join us virtually. And
He's there.
so I will let you all ask a few questions.
Great.
Hi, Jack.
Jack, welcome. Can you hear us? Make sure he's unmuted.
I want to see him.
Can you promote him as a panelist? Okay.
He's muted right now.
And invisible.
So he needs to unmute and he needs to accept
There he is.
our,
There he is.
Okay, Jack, can you hear us? Not yet.
Jack?
But should he be promoted to panelist, or does he have to accept that?
I've asked him twice to.
You've got his email or his text phone or something.
But if he can't hear us,
Promote to panelist. Oh. But he can't be promoted against as well.
Put anything in the chat?
Chat is disabled.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah.
We have to hang up a pull. We used to have cue cards.
I'm sorry, so you said we did interview him?
That
For
would
the
only work
AAB.
if you were looking at the screen.
Thank you.
very smart, just very honest, upfront,
Is he the
open.
one that you said, oh, are you gonna fund the airport? Or was that you who said that, Craig?
Like the finance, help work out the financing.
I think he said no.
It's from
Jack, we
Chicago.
see you. We don't know if you can hear us, and we know we can't.
Oh, there you
he
are.
is. There he is. All right, can you hear us? You're still muted.
How about now?
Yeah,
We
we've
got
got
you.
you. Welcome.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, thanks for coming in and thanks for applying. It was a surprise, but not really, to see you sign up after we kind of suggested that. That'd be great if you applied for this, so thanks for coming in. Really
It's
good.
my pleasure. I guess I should be careful what I ask for or ask about, but,
Exactly.
but if at first you don't succeed, try again, right?
Right, right. I did want to ask you a couple of questions, unless you want to tell us anything about, I guess you've been on financial advisory boards. Have you been on financial advisory boards of this nature?
No. And so one of my questions really is, what goes on and how I can help, right? Again, when I applied for the Airport Advisory Board, one of the comments I made is for the last 43 years, I have been in the commercial real estate finance business. So I have been financing income producing real estate my entire career. I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, but I'm good with numbers and understand variance of the capital markets. And so I've never had any exposure to public finance. I've never had any exposure to kind of the whole, what's the right word? Infrastructure financing. And I had made the comment in my conversation, as you remember, relative to the airport, is anyone focusing on the lease and the quality of the lease and whether or not the lease with the FBO is actually financeable? And because I asked that question, one or all of you guys said, whoa, maybe this guy could, add a different perspective on the financial advisory board. So I don't know what I don't know.
God, thank you for that. I just want to say that I'm chairing this meeting, and I'm also recused from talking about the FBO lease. So if you go into detail on that, I'll have to leave the room.
Okay.
But there's other stuff we can talk about. Being on the Financial Advisory Board, the impression I get is maybe only one of the other members has experience out, in the public sphere, government sphere. So I think you won't be alone. Charlotte may have
Good.
better information. But my question for you is, I know Evan, I think, had suggested you for the airport board. And so I guess you know Evan, and my concern is I think on this board, I'm trying to figure out how to frame this. I want to make sure we're not creating a lobby if we've got two very like-minded people who are aligned. And, how independent are you of a thinker I guess would be the question. And do you understand the culture of our community and our community well enough that you think you could participate? And the reason I'm asking is, we're kind of tree huggers here. We're environmentalists. We're focused on climate change. We're focused on environmental topics. We have a strong community health and public health. You know, we think about a lot of things which are not really in the realm of finance, and I wanted to know what your thoughts were.
Well, that's a really good question. So here's my answer. I love tree huggers, but I'm also practical, and I am a full-time resident. I literally want to be buried at the Aspen Cemetery. I want to watch over my children. The home will be in the family's estate, and I want to ensure that that the community is vibrant for another 30, 40, 50 years. One of the things that has me troubled by the community dialogue around the airport is I'm not sure people are actually agreeing on the same set of facts and thinking about them over the same duration. And if I were right about that, what I would propose to bring to the table is just kind of practical. One of the reasons why I like numbers is my dad used to say is that liars can figure, but figures can't lie. The math either works or it doesn't work. And I don't want to go down the route of creating a conflict for you relative to the lease, but let me just give you a basic example about numbers. A net lease produces more financing than a gross lease. And so if the lease is not bondable, all the noise around the community about whether or not we can self-fund the airport is all air, because you need a bondable lease or a net lease to be able to finance what they're talking about. That doesn't mean the FBO lease is a problem. It means that it can't do what certain people are saying. And my view about what's going on, and I'll label the tree huggers for this, is there's a lot of noise around no growth and throwing dirt at rich people with Gulf Streams, but no one's talking about real facts. And so again, I'm fascinated by it. I want to help. The problem is, you asked if I was an independent thinker. I think with my tongue, and I suffer from the affliction that I've never had an unspoken thought. So you may not like what I say. I'll say it as respectfully and as nice as I can, but you will know that I believe what I'm saying. And you can call bullshit. You can say, Jack, that just doesn't make any sense. And I'll accept that. I'm not about being right. What I really want is everyone to have the opportunity to achieve an outcome they seek.
Great. Now, my last question is, happily, the Financial Advisory Board talks about a lot more than our airport. So there'll be other economic issues, housing issues, funding public, infrastructure, things like that. So hopefully that'll be of interest to you. And I'll cede the rest of my time to my fellow commissioners. Who else has a question or would like to? Patty, do you want to?
I'm fine with, I think Jack would be, we encouraged him to, and we even mentioned at the time of his AAB interview that we thought the Financial Advisory Board might be a good spot, and here he is.
Okay.
On the spot.
That's an endorsement. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Francie.
Hi, Jack. It's Francie. I'm
there.
so glad you're back. We thoroughly enjoyed our interview with you last time. My only regret about your being on this particular committee is that we won't get to see you very often.
I actually did notice it's only a couple of times a year, and it's the spring, the summer. Money doesn't flow the rest of the time of the year. Is that right?
Well, you're just going to have to figure out other reasons to come and see us.
We'll just have to invite them more often.
But you do get Ann Driggers. Ann Driggers will be there connecting, so that'll be good.
So yeah, I'm definitely thumbs up.
Okay. Steve, do you want to?
Well, I was going to say that Evan Marks he has sent us many letters and done like personal analysis of things related to the airport. Just, I think, on his own. He he wasn't representing the financial advisory board and giving us advice on things, but you could do that as an individual, weigh in on different topics like Evan has. But I would not worry at all about not having the same financial background that, and Driggers can fill you in on all the governmental details for sure. But just having your practical experience, lifetime of practical experience is invaluable, and that can help guide us in making wise financial decisions. Because we have to be making those kind of decisions all the time. We're always weighing the cost to the public versus the public good, and can we afford this, or how much of it can we afford? All those kind of things.
It's like the real world, right? The key to life is how do you deal with finite resources? Without that ability, then you're my children who spell cash M-O-R-E. So on that basis, I kind of understand that. It's funny. I've listened to Evan speak on some other calls around, for lack what I would say is the other side of the airport argument, and some of the facts and research he's put together, I found is really so interesting. But my observation is, and this isn't an observation for tree huggers, it's my observation of the Aspen community. A lot of people who like to talk at one another. Are people willing to sit around a table and talk in order to come to a decision and move on to the next set of decisions? So far, I haven't experienced that around the dialogue or debate about the airport.
Well, come spend more time with this board.
Yeah.
We're consensus, at least 40% of the time. Is there more, Steve, or is Kelly? You on?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Jack, I would appreciate your insights on this board. We've had, I think, some waning membership or some tenuous membership, and so haven't, I think there's been a struggle in convening the board at times, and so I think more people on it would be great. There are times where just kind of at the whim of our priorities and conversations, we do reach out to you all for input on things. So just attention to that is required. I think that beyond, airport and this historic kind of negotiation, we sort of have ordinary things like what are the economic conditions that are going to help us plan a good budget for the following budget year, that we look to the FAB for their insights on, how do we sort of structure regular and more ordinary type of projects financially, again, a little separate from like this historic airport project that we're in the midst of. But that is what I see as kind of the more ordinary type of work. I don't know if we still have an investment board that
No, I don't think we do now that we have that.
The
we've
FAB,
hired out.
I think, gives some insights about our investment types of portfolios, and when we want to make crazy moves like ESR, commitments in investing and things like that, to understand if those can be financially solvent types of policy decisions. So that's where I can sort of where we lean on the FAB in more regular course of business. And I think it seems by your resume to have great insights along that spectrum too.
Yeah, I also appreciate you. I wanted to get to that. Setting aside the elephant in the room, the once in a 50-year, airport thing, like what you guys do day to day, like what the typical initiatives are, and that's helpful to talk about, or at least the being at effect of economic conditions and structuring regular and ordinary projects. Are there a lot going on at any one time? I know there seems like there's a lot going on right now.
Well, I wish you had been here with us just an hour or so ago. We were having a discussion about how do we create more workforce housing and affordable housing in the Valley. And
Yeah,
a
there's
lot of-
nothing more important.
there are a
There
lot
is
of-
nothing more
well,
important than
so-
that topic.
That's great to hear you say that, because we've got a lot of creative ideas on the table, and they may end up being ideas that work in concert with each other regarding buy downs and various funding, models and fundraising models, like, whether or not we go to the public with a tax, or, creative financing. It would really be great to involve the FAB more in that, because we're going to have choices to make, and we'll have to decide where the best bang for the buck is, and I could see that your board being very helpful, and you as well as part of that board. So
It's interesting. Thank you. I am fascinated by the topic. I mean, I don't know a lot about workforce housing and public-private partnerships, but a friend of mine in the finance world has a home in Telluride, and he's gotten involved in a public-private partnership between the city of Telluride and some of their wealthy residents to try and do this. I do think that the airport is not the most existential issue this city has. It's workforce housing. And I set aside, everything that's gone on for housing and all the second homeowners and all that other stuff. We need normal human beings to serve, everyday community, and I don't know where they're going to live. And that commute up and down 82 is not an easy commute. And I even have a service provider who has been homeless. And when I have the conversation with her, I'm just astounded that this exists in a world like ours. I mean, that's how naive I am. And in point of fact, as an aside, with a buddy of mine, I've been actually buying, not a lot, but buying some condos and single-family homes around the Eagle Airport to lease to people who are looking for housing. If the house is big enough, I've got 3 scenarios where I have 3-generation families, grandparents to grandchild, who are living together, and it's all I can do to make sure the rent's low enough so that they can afford it. I mean, I'm not changing anything in the community, but at least I'm helping 3 families. And I do think that is it in a nutshell relative to Aspen, and I worry about potential NIMBYism, that people just don't want it in their neighborhood, and I don't know what they're thinking about.
Right. Thank you for that. That's encouraging, and I want to give you a list of people to call. And I'm just wondering if, say, one of us on this board would like to have Jack call April Long, for instance, or somebody who's working with us at the West Region Mountain Housing. How do we do that so we're doing it properly? What would be the proper channel? Because I don't want to send the Financial Advisory Board out on my own mission.
I don't know if that has anything to do right now with the Financial Advisory Board. It'd be his own
Well, I'm just
personal.
wondering,
Yeah,
they might be able
yeah.
to help with analysis on our participation on that board. And I'm just wondering, that's what I'm thinking about, and I don't know how to do it, so I won't do it until I know.
I think any citizen that's part of any citizen board and to be engaged in other aspects of the county or activities regionally, it's always helpful for them to go. I still would let it go back through Anne as the liaison for the FAB and the FAB to discuss at a bigger picture. But if Jack has the expertise to go connect and encouraging it on a personal level.
Great. All right. So we'll.
Greg, my knee-jerk reaction went to Urban Land Institute. It's an industry association you're aware of. The district council in Colorado is a solid one. The guy who runs the council, I have done some classes for, we're talking about different things for the next year. But one of the things I have said from the beginning is I'm really interested in this whole workforce housing issue in all the mountain communities, and how do we learn more, how do we get more help? And it is kind of, I was astounded by it. There's all sorts of free government programs, like federal government programs that I know nothing about, but when I was listening to others involved in this, I'm looking at financing real estate conventionally. I don't know where the free pockets are. And these people knew all these different things that they get. And so, Greg, my answer would be we get collectively educated. And different people can come in and, we can facilitate discussions. I can learn and then share, or if you're interested in learning with me, hi, this is my friend Greg. We don't have to do it as an extension of the FAB, would be my reaction. You guys would have to make sure I didn't get over my skis on behalf of the FAB, but talking to people is what I do all day long. So I'm happy to extend and ask questions, et cetera.
Great, thank you. Patty?
I just have a process question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So we still open for applicants, or are we closed?
No, I will continue advertising because we have 2 vacancies.
So can we appoint now as the permanent member and then keep recruiting for the alternate?
Yes.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
I would do that, sure.
And then it could come back to us at our next regular?
Steve's nodding in agreement.
So Jack, you be careful what you ask for. Because you asked for it.
Thank you for offering
thank
to be
you.
of service again.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, I look forward to your
talking to you.
input. We do have to do a formal resolution, but otherwise,
Okay.
yeah, we feel good about it. Thank
And then
you.
hopefully we can get you in here in person one of these days.
Yeah, I would love it. If my wife would stop tinkering with my kitchen, then I wouldn't have to be like homeless. So I'm actually in Chicago right now, but I'll be back in a couple of weeks because I've been promised I can have a kitchen.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much.
Hopefully it'll stop
Thanks, Jack.
snowing by then. Yeah.
It's stopped. It's over.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Bye. Appreciate
Bye-bye.
you guys.
Thanks, Charlotte.
I'll prepare that resolution for June 12th. And
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move right along here. Thank you. Well, everybody was enthusiastic about that. Review of a future agenda calendars. I'm looking at Kara.
The only item, thank you. The only item I have, and I think Rich is going to jump on, is about the July 18th Brush Creek site visit that I believe was forwarded to all of you.
July 18th?
At the
Rush Creek?
parking ride.
Yes,
Park
at
and
the
ride.
park and ride.
The
Bridge
bridges.
Oh, the bridge.
locations.
Yeah.
The
July
bike path
18th?
next to Shale Bluffs.
July 18th?
Did I, is it,
I can't possibly see 2 months ahead.
I don't know. I might have written it down wrong. Rich? I'm
Yeah,
punting to
let
Rich.
let me pull it up. I believe it's June 18th.
June
Okay.
18th.
I will be out of town, but
That's a
that's
work
okay.
session day.
Let me find
Session site
Gary's
visit.
thing here.
Come
I'm
to
sorry,
see.
I should have had that all pulled up and ready to go.
We have a
Anyways,
full
Gary
work session
Gary
that
was
day.
pulling together this joint meeting with the city, and was looking at that date. So hang on
June
just a second
18th?
here.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard.
Yes.
Tori was in
Yeah,
charge.
July 18th.
Oh, it's July.
It's July.
July 18th.
That is the distant future.
Not in our packet.
That's a Thursday.
Oh. Shoot, I don't know what I'm
You know
doing
what you all can
tomorrow.
get me for my birthday, which is on July 17th?
Calendar?
Not giving
Two
you
bridges.
We're
for
not
my
giving you a
birthday.
bridge with your name on it. I'm not
Oh,
doing that.
we'll get right on that, Kelly.
You already got it, Bridget.
Well, my birthday is next week, so I'm asking for a moratorium on bridges over the Roaring Fork. Can I
And
get
my
that?
birthday's on the
Going to the site visit. Is anyone's mind open here? What is the point of a site visit?
You're going to convince us. You're trying to convince us.
because
No, I
somebody
wanna-
asked
'cause
for
I
it.
want to look at Shale Bluffs when I'm there. So,
My
Yeah, it's right
birthday's
there.
the
We can discuss
31st,
it.
so
I
I have
looked at
the,
it this morning
I
on
have
the
the
way
last word, right?
It was very
do you
rideable this
think?
morning.
go ahead, Patty.
Worth a try.
Let's give it to Patty.
So I think we were just wanting it to be on your calendars, and then as it gets closer,
It's on mine now.
okay.
Yeah,
Got mine
Gary's
with a
got,
big question mark.
they'll come back with some more details, but just wanted to get it in front of you first, because there's gonna be quite a bit of coordinating that's gonna have to happen here to get everybody out and about and around. So
And
but there's a high interest level of doing this.
I'm hoping we can get a CDOT person at some level, or at least Public Works from our side, to come out and just be there with us on the ground. Hopefully CDOT.
We can do that. We can do that,
can
Greg.
ask them.
We can line up some staff around it for you.
Great. Thank you.
I have no future agenda issues.
That was the only item I had for future agendas.
Kelly, go ahead.
I wanted to follow up from our housing retreat about trying to schedule a presentation from Anne on the property tax map and also schedule an update on the rebate program that maybe if they happen at the same time might make sense, but.
And
Sure.
I'd like to find out if we're gonna have a discussion on the existing policy, quote unquote, about housing outside the urban growth boundary.
So I can answer that one. That one is part of the Vision 2050 comp plan process. So we, over the summer and fall, from the growth committee's recommendations, we'll be looking at pulling a stakeholder group together.
But if we decide to put a ballot question on about housing, we need to have a decision on that, I think, in order, because right now, if we move forward with our policy to keep housing within the urban growth boundary, I think that could run in conflict if we choose to put a ballot question on. Just a thought.
I would like to make sure that we have another update on the FBO negotiations. John Ely had suggested every week, and this is now 3 weeks.
Thank you, Francie and Patty, for your.
We've got both John P. and John E. out of town.
Right. I wanted to say that I've been approached by both Lift Up and English in Action about presenting to us what they're up to, what they're doing. And English in Action, hold, let me just see.
I have been approached by Epic.
They're all looking
Right.
for capital funds, I believe.
Everybody's looking for money,
And
we
we
know
have a
that.
$200,000 fund that we have not allocated nor spent on that. So that would be another thing we would like. to-
I'd like to get them on the calendar if we can.
Too.
We also have been approached by Habitat to get a pitch on the modular housing. They're on now? Okay, I wasn't sure if they were on because we were waiting to see. I had suggested that we include other modular housing manufacturers in the region, just out of, so
Wait,
we
I have
know
a question.
the market. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the reasons we haven't had these organizations come in about capital requests is because we haven't discussed our policy on capital requests and how we're gonna fund 10 organizations that all want capital funding from us.
We did set up a $200,000.
That's not getting
fund.
anybody anywhere when they're asking for
I
significant.
understand, but we did discuss it, and we did set up that fund. So it's not like we haven't had any discussions about it.
But I think that's why it hasn't been, we haven't been scheduling people on our agenda because
Well, I don't think that's why we haven't been scheduling them, but I do think it's an issue that we don't have that much money, but, yeah.
Right. One of the things we can also offer them is publicity. You know, if they come and present to us, the community is listening. And I think that's important and
to their need for
worthwhile
capital improvements.
for them to talk about what they're doing. I know English in Action is building a new building, and they've raised a lot of money for it.
They've
Lift
already
Up has-
broken ground.
Lift Up has bought a building, and they've raised a lot of money for that. I think they want to let the community
Did they
know what's
buy it?
going. They bought it, yeah, pretty sure. So that's, English in Action did ask about June 11th, probably because I'd said it looked like a light day, but I
June
don't,
11th, we have a site visit at the distillery and a joint meeting with Basalt.
so that's probably not a good day.
We have for like a 1 to
I'll just
3
share that
meeting
with
or
you.
something.
Yeah, let
But
me,
we might have exec in the morning about airport stuff. You can zoom in,
No, I'll come to exec.
but that hasn't been scheduled yet.
That's all I've got. That's, just
Okay.
wanted to make sure we
Thanks, Greg, for
mention
bringing
it.
that up.
just to confirm, I heard Epic, English in Action, and Lift Up were the requests that you've had.
Yeah, Epic was from, and then
Mike Love.
Habitat.
Yeah.
was
You
one
remember
there.
him? It's only been
Okay,
2
that's all I had. And nothing else from anyone else? Steve, for that, or do you want to go to open discussion?
I'm good.
Let's move it to open discussion. Rich, my first open discussion comment is you've got to reverse that background slide. I am so confused.
I just did.
It is reverse.
Oh, you did? Thank you. See?
Thunderbolt there.
It makes sense to me now. Now I know where you are.
Now we're moving the airport to
You're-
the other side.
You're standing on top of, you're up by the radar tower, almost.
There you go.
Actually, you're on final approach.
or takeoff.
Yeah, while you were talking, I thought I should flip that around so Greg isn't confused. So
I know,
there
I
you
was
go.
getting, if I looked cross-eyed. Okay, open discussion, anything else? That's all I had.
The letter for Kathy Chandler Henry.
Oh, from
Yeah,
her,
I tried to read that.
the River District letter?
I think it could be stated more clearly. I think it's convoluted and difficult.
Well, I think the problem for me is that we use we and then we use I, so we need to correct that.
We what?
It says we and then it says
I.
I. We
I
and then
know.
I. That needs
I
to be
noticed
corrected.
that too.
The other thing, I thought we were more concerned about, we need some assurance that we are not going to be negatively impacted. And I didn't really see that in the body of the letter. Maybe that's
Right.
too strong.
I have a lot of
No,
time to
Patty,
read it.
Thank you for saying that. How come I don't have that in front of me? Where is
You
that?
should.
I did see the
It
letter
came from Jane. It came from Jane.
I see the letter from the River District dated at 11 o'clock this morning. Have you all seen that?
You should have a letter from Jane Akey.
I do have one from her with the letter
Aki,
to us
Jane.
from the River District that Kathy signed. And they talk about making sure that the flows from Root Eye are protected, but there's no mention of the Upper Roaring Fork. And I find that a little bit.
Yes, there is.
Is there? How
Yeah.
come I missed it?
He's reading, he's not reading the, here.
Yeah,
I read
but
it.
I do think that we could make it,
This is our letter to
make the
her.
point better. I didn't quite see the main point, which is, if there's no cameo call, we don't have any assurance that water is gonna flow because it'll be pulled over to Twin Lakes. I mean, that's the bottom line, and I'm not sure that that
Right.
letter gets that.
And the
Thank you.
point of, we want some kind of assurances that we are not going to be negatively impacted.
Who crafted this letter? Did
I don't know if it
John?
was
I guess
John
John
and
must
Jane.
have.
Sounds like John to me, John Ely.
Came
So
through Jane.
it came through Jane. So I agree with both of you that I think we need to be very clear that the Upper Roaring Fork is of primary concern to us.
Well, the whole beginning of it says that, but it doesn't say really how the cameo call, it doesn't say directly how the cameo call affects that.
Got
At least I couldn't find that.
I see Patty's got her
Have you read
notes
it?
on this. Have you made any notes on it? Have you made any
Mine
edit
was
notes?
just the we's and the I's.
Why don't we submit edit notes back to Ely and then we'll see another draft? 'Cause
Okay.
I'm in agreement with what I'm hearing. Have you seen it, Kelly or
I have, yeah.
Steve? Does that make sense to you?
That's fine, yeah.
Do we have, I have one other one, Greg.
Okay, thanks,
I
Patty.
forwarded on to you guys a note I got from,
We've lost the Zoom for a second.
Oh,
I forwarded on to you guys a letter an email I got from, Barbara Convisor of Maroon Creek. They had apparently built dumpster sheds. Their dumpster and their recycling cans all sit right on Maroon Creek Road, and they're
Yeah,
an
I got it too.
invitation to wildlife. Apparently, there was a glitch in permitting or whatever. The county mandated they tear them down. They would like to go through a process now, but they've been told it'd be a year out to get any kind of permits to just build 2 dumpster sheds.
yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know if we can expedite that, because it's not just a visual impact and for people going up to the Maroon Bells to
Bear
drive
thing.
by it, but
It's
it's an
bears.
attractant to wildlife.
Right. The bears aren't gonna wait a
I
year.
thought you could do a 10 by 20-foot shed without a permit.
We're gonna call it a lean, no, what do you call it? Hay,
If it's on wheels.
what's it called in a ranch? You call it a hay shed or a hay?
Oh, no, no.
loft
They,
that-
they have a word that they've used in all of this stuff that I had never heard before.
I know, and I can't remember, we talked about it for
I
hours.
can't remember what it is either.
Loafing shed.
Yes, loafing shed, right. I
You'll
think
find
it's
bears.
from the east.
You'll
that
find bears
expression.
loafing in it. Kara, do you have enough direction on the Colorado River Roaring Fork?
So let's go. I heard you were giving edits to Ely and Jane.
I think I was hoping to get Patty's edits and Francie's.
Why don't you
back.
have Francie add her edits to mine's just the I's and the we's, and then we can
I'll-
email it or fax it.
I will try. You want me to send it to you, Greg, so you can send them all
I'd
on?
like to see it once you get it.
Okay.
Take a look at what Patty did. If you want to be the whip on that, I will
Yeah,
then
mine's a
forward it
little
on.
more hefty than this.
Great, well then, yeah, so I just wanted to make sure. So you'll send it to me, I'll forward it on through John and Ely
Then
and Peacock.
How would we like to get back to Barbara Convisor?
Okay, so do we need to direct ComDev to talk to them.
And
help.
I'm asking Kara, who's our ComDev guru these days.
Oh, we lost everything? Are we on grassroots? We're on grassroots.
We're good.
We are? Okay.
Okay, but we do not have Zoom, so we've lost Steve as well, just as you were aware.
This sentence, for
It's such a
instance,
tragic
is
thing
60
to lose
words.
a companion like that.
I can get some more
60 words in
information.
one sentence.
I will get some more information from Suzanne and see what that might.
And I think
look
they know how to get a hold of, did I send this on to you? I
Yep.
sent it to
Yeah,
Pete.
I have some additional.
Okay.
I was prepared for a different kind of questioning on the subject, so.
We've been talking about, when we have somebody who's in dire straits, the people whose house burned down, things like that, there ought to be an ombudsman or somebody who can expedite a process without being unfair to others, but realizing the gravity or the necessity. Or in this case, it's like a triviality. It's like, get the dumpster shed built.
We don't want more animals on that road
Well,
through there.
and just so you're aware, I think part of the problem is there's not a great solution right now. So my understanding is part of it, most of it was, the original one was on Forest Service property, so that where they moved it then was blocking fire access. The fire department asked them to remove
he had
it.
lived there, gone to high school.
She did not include
They
that.
were honoring
Yes.
his two best
So that's
friends
some of the-
Wait, listen to
yesterday
Steve,
at
he's
the
got history
Memorial
on
Day
it. Start over,
celebration.
Steve, we can't hear you.
Dad's two best friends were
Start over.
killed in action.
We don't know what he's talking about.
Steve, start over. We didn't hear any of that.
Hold on. No, we lost the link there for a while. Now you guys are back. We were just talking about open discussion about, so Kara's up telling
I'll
us
call
about the
Barbara,
bears.
let her
and-
know.
That's
We're
what he
gonna
was
get back
talking
to
about.
her.
Okay. Yep. Let me connect with Suzanne because I think there's not an easy solution right now, which is part of it.
She can
so.
let
If
us
we
know.
can just-
So before we tell them what to do, they
Yeah.
should tell us what's going
Yes.
on.
But that's what, he has some history on that I want to hear.
On this
On
Maroon
the
Creek
bear, you were
shed?
talking about the bear shed, right? Steve?
I don't think he was.
I think he was just chit-chatting with Rich.
I think it was Memorial Day.
We were just chatting.
No, I was telling about how my dad is being studied and honored by the Glencoe, Illinois Historical
already told
Society,
That's what he's talking
where he lived for 5 years and went to high school when he was living there.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were
All
talking
right.
about the
I
bear
thought you were
shed.
talking about
People
dumpster
that-
sheds.
Was I
told
was
us
just
that when he was in
amazed.
Glencoe.
Okay.
They showed me a map, and the guy said it was a hand-drawn map from the 1930s, and he pointed to this garage on the back corner of a lot, and he said, "That's where your dad lived, in that garage that's no longer there. That's where my grandma and aunt and dad lived, in a garage there that they were renting."
Humble
They had,
beginnings.
it's really interesting.
I'm sorry.
I
You
don't
want-
have
you
any
need to
other
go?
open
Do
discussion.
you want to, if we're
We're
done, I
wrapping
think
up.
we're
I
all
have
done.
one more thing. I have one more
Kelly
thing.
has one more thing. Rich has something.
Rich has one.
Okay, Rich, you first, then Kelly.
Okay, good, thank you. Hey, Greg, last meeting, we did bring forward for board's consideration the letter regarding the Dolores Canyon.
Dolores
Didn't know
Canyon.
if that got back to you. There was a little bit of confusion on that, so.
Yeah.
I'm so
didn't know if
glad you
wanted-
brought that up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had requested some time and I reached out to partners, and this does not conflict with the special management area, national conservation area proposal. The monument is outside the borders of where that is being considered, and so we were encouraged to sign on. I feel like comfortable that that's a good
Well,
thing for us
Steve's
to do.
concern was that it was gonna incorporate areas where we should be mining uranium
Uranium mining.
for nuclear power, and
Yeah.
sorry.
I have seen several references to this. I've had quite a few things forwarded to me to please have us sign this. And like I say, there was a whole presentation when there was an event for Elizabeth Velasco last spring, and it was really an amazing presentation. So I would love for us to sign it.
Steve, your primary concern is you don't want to limit the mining operations that have been there historically or possible future mining operations?
Well, I think that they said that they drew the boundaries so that existing mines were not included in the boundary. But to me, it's a bigger discussion about, it involves our national energy policy and our foreign policy, because we quit buying $900 million worth of uranium from Russia every year, 900 or 600, one of those numbers. And I think there should be, before President Biden just designates this land as a national monument, I think there needs to be a little more research done before jumping into something that we might very quickly regret not having studied it a little more carefully.
There have been years of research into this project. There's a lot of history before they even brought this forward on what it would mean and what it would affect. And
Also, part of the Dolores River, they do have the special management area like Kelly was talking about. And perhaps I'd like to know actually more about that seems like maybe the entire area should be initially a special management area, while they could then be studying the national monument designation for portions or maybe for all of it.
been studying.
I don't know, it'd be 10. I think I would like to see more research done.
Steve, my guess is the research has been done. Maybe it's just a matter of informing ourselves, because I know this has been a topic at the front for quite a long time, and I'd be surprised if the research hadn't been done about the viability of the uranium, all those things, because it's been a uranium location since the 1940s, I believe, the late 40s. David Lavender writes about it in One Man's West, actually, which was written in 1949. Great book, by the way. Commissioner's Book Club selection. So I think that the information's probably there. It's just a matter of being up to speed and then comfortable with supporting it. And I confess I don't know enough, and I should know more, but I haven't been paying attention because it's far enough away that I've been thinking about other things. So I appreciate your concern. Francie's saying that the work has already been done, and it's time to get on board. If we're concerned about energy policy, we could reopen up oil and gas drilling in the Thompson as well, if we're that concerned, right?
Oh my God, Greg.
I'm just saying, how far does it go? That
The
was
uranium,
a rhetorical
well,
question.
we don't need to discuss the uranium is seen as a complement to renewable energy things. Oil and gas is not. That's the opposite of,
Right,
of
that's
the
true. That's
renewable.
Well, okay, sounds like you're not interested in signing on, so we don't have a board consensus to do that. Maybe we can work on you. If there's anything we can do, maybe let's all learn a little bit more and then perhaps bring this back around.
Would we prefer to just sign individually on the letter, and Steve, you can remain omitted?
We could do that now. Yeah, we could always do that now.
I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that, because until they figure out what to do with nuclear waste from nuclear power plants,
You're
I'm
not
not
signing
supporting the use of nuclear.
Would we have our name and then comma Pickens County Commissioner 4 times?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
So we're all free to do that. We're free to do that. And if you learn anything new about it, if you change your mind, let us know, because maybe we can all sign on.
So, Rich, will you move that on for us?
I can do that. Just a clarification, the letter is written and addressed to the president, but it refers to asking the president to do some things. Is it directly to President Biden, or do you know if
It
it's
is directly
somebody
to
in
President
He's the
Biden.
one who designates under the.
From the Mountain Pact?
And
or
it's
something?
copied to Deb Howland and some others.
From who?
From us.
It's,
Not a coalition?
No, it comes directly from.
there are
us.
a lot of
I think we
people out
should
there.
each sign a separate letter and send it to the president.
I'll have to look at it again.
Yeah, just
Or
if
what?
you can get that clarification, Greg,
Sign
because
it,
it's
or
written as if, it's going to him, but not to him. So
Rick?
might look it over.
Right, right.
Under the National Something Act, what's the act, Francie? The National,
monument, right?
Antiquities Act?
Antiquities, yeah.
which is
Does
the authority of the president.
And currently I was testifying because the GOP is trying to scuttle the Antiquities Act, Lauren Boebert in particular. So I might sign on to it just because.
Just because.
Because. Okay. Were you guys here when we talked briefly about the River District letter to the Colorado River? We received a letter from Kathy Chandler Henry. Were you guys just on? I wasn't sure if we were connected.
You were just talking about it and then we got cut off.
Got it. Okay. So Kathy Chandler Henry's letter, we got a letter today at 11 o'clock about them, and I don't know if they didn't mention the Roaring Fork as much as they mentioned Rudai in that letter.
No,
I think that was the original letter that was sent on to us.
Jane was just making sure we had the whole record.
Oh, got it,
Our
okay, so
letter
it's
is
not
a
a new,
draft.
not a new letter, okay, it's the same
did
letter.
mention it.
And so we've got our draft letter back, but Francie and Patty saw typos and things that need to be corrected. If you want to look at that, Steve, you'd be welcome to.
If you didn't,
So it's like
Submit
11
your
o'clock this morning. I
changes.
hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Kara didn't get it, so it might have just come to us.
So we've got we'll get Jane to send it to you, or somebody will. I will.
Okay.
Can we go home?
Kelly, did you have?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about what Rich brought up.
Okay, so the only other, we'll end on a high note, is that we were awarded $250,000 from the Energy Office for our geothermal planning grant at the airport.
cool.
It's very exciting. We did ask for the full 500, and we received 250, and I think they just spread the money out a little bit further. So this is basically the kind of the next step from the entire microgrid project and planning there. So great news there.
That's really great news. Nice job.
And kudos to GR, Rich, Michael Port, the whole airport team, and Really Sustainable Strategies for helping us pull that grant together.
Yeah, that was
Yay.
fantastic. That's great news. Thank you.
And I do have a question with you and Rich here. John's not here, but we were gonna follow up with NACO to see if we needed to file.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. Rich, we're
can
looking
help
at
you there.
you.
I can help you there. I did reach out to Jessica. She's aware of that June 12th deadline.
Thank you,
We'll
Kelly.
be writing that legislative information for you and filling it out. I asked if there was a formal resolution needed from the board. She said no, it's just on their end, they just have to have the language for consideration. So she's aware of it. Patty, she's aware you and John are going to be visiting with her and going to NACO to make that pitch.
Great.
So I think it's all set up. I think
Great.
everything's good.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I got.
I think we're done. Andorra, we are finished. Thank you all.
Guys.
We're closing
Thank
it
you,
out for
Scott.
the day. We'll see you next Tuesday.